All right. Hey, Darren.
Hi there.
We're live. We're live.
We are indeed.
Indeed, we are. So, um, little pre-show stuff here for anyone who's tuning into the video stream. Just wanted to mention this. So, apparently, I needed to cough first. Um, here's kind of been the situation on the back end of For Mac Guys Only in terms of publishing this video and the audio show. So the way we do this, and Darren knows this, obviously, Eric knows this too, when we record, what we're recording here is just kind of everything that happens, including what we're talking about right now, everything that happens during and around the recording of the audio episode of For Mac Guys Only. That's the deal. Or as I call it sometimes, the warts and all, right? This is everything that happens behind the scenes. We're live streaming it out, and
Anything could happen.
Anything can happen, including an appearance by Princess the Wonder Cat. Hey, Brian. Brian's in the chat room. Good afternoon, Brian. As usual, he's going to be in and out, joining us during the show. Good to see you, Brian. Anyway, so this is the warts and all, and we do start the recording, and then I edit that down to the audio show and release that. Now, once we're done with the live stream, what happens is it goes to an unpublished state. If you know where to look, you can find it. It's in one of the playlists, and you can find it and watch it there if you want to, but it's not public, as it were. It's unlisted. And the reason for that is because the audio show hasn't been released yet. I don't have a description for the show yet because, heck, we just recorded the darn thing. And what I like to do is I like to include chapter markers in the show so that you can skip what we're doing right now and jump to the beginning of the recording if you care to. Now, I will say there's often incredibly wonderful golden nuggets that you're going to hear in this pre-show stuff. I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, you never know.
Just saying. You never know. But I like to put the chapter markers in. So that's what takes a while. It takes a while to kind of re-watch. I mean, I can remember what we did and said more or less, but sometimes I want to put a chapter marker in where we made a particularly bad dad joke or something. And I'll put the chapter marker in just so that you can find it. Because, heck, who doesn't want a good bad dad joke? And so it takes a little while to go through, figure out where the chapter markers should go, write them all up, and then get them into the YouTube description so that they appear. Well, this last episode, getting the video public just took me forever. I had so much other stuff going on. I never got around to it. So here's what I'm going to do. From now on, I'm going to, on the day the audio episode gets published, I'm going to go ahead and push the YouTube video to the public feed, though it may not have all the chapter markers in it yet. We'll put one at the beginning, we'll put one where the show recording starts, and we'll put one like maybe where stuff that's easy to find, essential apps and stuff like that. I'll put quick little chapter markers in, but I won't necessarily put all the chapter markers in until later, and I get the opportunity to go through it and put them in. And if I never get the opportunity, well, then they won't be in. I just realized that an older episode that I'm referencing today, I'll make a reference to this episode today. An older episode, I went back to look and see what we had talked about, and I never put any chapter markers in, so I couldn't quickly tell what we talked about in that episode. So I had to go back to my original show notes. But anyway, that's the deal. So from now on, so there isn't this extraordinary wait between when the live stream ends and when the live stream becomes public. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just push it out the same day or evening. Same evening the audio show goes out, I'll put out the public, I'll make the video public.
Cool.
So
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
there you go.
It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of hard work to do all of this. This is why I don't do it.
Which is
It's
why you don't
a
do
lot of hard work.
Yeah,
And then you
exactly.
also have to edit us down a bit and take out the bits that where I say complete nonsense, and then you can make me sound better, which is great.
Never in the video, though. Never in the video. I can
Not in the
think
video,
of
but
maybe two instances in the video where I cut something out. And it was only because one of us had inadvertently mentioned something that was what we normally consider private information.
okay.
And
Yeah.
I went back and cut it out so that it wouldn't continue to be there. It went out at originally when we live streamed it, it went out. But for the replays, it was gone. Sorry,
Cool.
but
Cool.
otherwise everything stays in there. And now
Yeah.
the blissfully idiotic stuff that I might say during the show, yes, that gets cut out for the audio episode. But nothing ever gets cut from the YouTube live stream. So
That's perfectly fine. Yeah.
there you go. There you go.
I have to be
Hey,
on my best behavior.
I'm gonna send you a quick message, Darren,
Oh.
because in the interview chat, I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
So that's what I would like to end with. If you don't see the interview chat,
I don't see anything. What am I looking at? Oh dear, this is terrible, isn't it?
in
This
the
is
top
where you
right,
give me
you see
tech advice to say, oh, click here, because
so it should be on the left of the web page where you are connected up.
I am. Oh, right. I see. Yes, I've got it now.
Got it?
The guest
Okay.
chat. Yes, I didn't realize where the
Yeah.
guest chat was. I found it now.
Yeah.
Yay.
And then there's a few things I'm going to mention that Eric and I actually covered in an episode, the one I'm going to reference, back in episode 415. It was episode 415. We mentioned a few of these because we had a particular theme to that episode. But this theme that you came up with is a little bit broader, so our focus may be broader as well. So anyway, anything we got to chat about before we start recording?
I don't think so. No, now that I know how the chat works, which is good. And I'm not completely mystified.
You can also, by the way, I guess it would be where would it be? It'd be over there. You can also see you should be able to click and see the chat room from YouTube if you would like to. There's one of the little buttons in the top right above the chat. You can click and see the public chat as well. So you would be able to see.
Comments.
Yeah, you would be able to see Brian's
Comments.
comment.
Yeah, I can see Brian's comment. Yes.
There you go. So that's where you can see the YouTube chat, and then you can also see the private interview chat. Ooh, secrets.
Excellent.
Secrets. Which we very rarely use. So that's the deal. Yeah. As far as the public show, like I said, the chapter markers might not always be there. I'll add those retroactively. So if skipping ahead, if using the chapter markers, if you like to watch the video and skipping ahead is important to you, hey, Brett. Oh no, he's not saying hi to me. He's saying hi to Brian. Well, fine. Hi, Brett.
Oh, well.
Anyway, if chapter markers is important,
no
you might want to wait for those to appear. But yeah, otherwise I'll just put a couple jumping in points in it. So, all right. Well, what do you think? Shall we get started with this episode
Sounds
here?
good. Sounds good.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Wahaha. All right. I just got to bring my stuff down here. Okay. We're at 12 minutes and 30 seconds into the recording. And I'll get started. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It's for Mac Guys Only, episode number 444 for January 24th, 2025. Looking for apps in all the wrong places. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to help uncover a few overlooked apps in Mac OS is Darren Davies. Hi Darren, where'd you go? Oh no.
Oh, I'm missing.
There
Hello
we go.
there.
Hi Darren.
Hi.
And remember, if you're joining us live, I'll be keeping an eye on that chat room too. So if you have any questions or comments as we move along, be sure to drop it in that chat room and we'll try to address it here on the show.
Cool. Hi there.
Hi there.
Oh, I like the show title. That's really good. Very.
I came up with that
I
at
can see
3
what
in the
you-
morning. 3 in the
Oh,
morning
very
I
good.
came up with that,
I see
Darren.
what you did there.
Well, last episode, we actually shared quite a few changes that we each make to a newly installed or newly migrated Mac. And we've actually got a couple listener tweaks to share with you in just a bit. But at the end of the show, we also shared a few must-have apps. In other words, tools that we each want on our Macs to be productive out of the gate. And I ended my list by saying, with Apple now pre-installing Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, there's really not much more that I need to install on a new Mac to be productive. Well, Darren picked up that challenge, and without getting into any details or previewing any of the apps that you want to mention, Darren, do you remember what you said?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. It was all prompted by not just the things you mentioned at the last part of the last show, but I remembered. Well, I was reminiscing about me getting into the Mac in the first place, and remembering that I had my list of known software that I would use, and then I was in a position of thinking, oh, what will I have to do when I switch, because I decided to move to the Mac, and what will I do? So I thought. I was in a fairly confused position about software. What would I need? And I thought that users new to the Mac may also be confused and thinking that they have to buy a load of software, like I did. Well, I didn't have to buy loads of software in the end. It was really useful because I did some nice research, read a few nice magazines, which I can chat about later. Little tease there, and came up with the fact that you're more than likely not needing anything, as there's so much free and built into the Mac that you wouldn't necessarily realize if you're new to it.
That's right. That's right. And your note about that got me thinking too, because there are so many overlooked apps that come with the Mac. Uh, as you said, there's really very little need to install some of the more, should we call them common or popular apps that people are
Yeah,
used to
yeah, yeah,
installing
yeah.
on, I don't know, let's say a Windows
Let's
PC,
say, or a
perhaps.
Windows
Yes.
machine, perhaps. Yes.
Yes. Now, I'll admit, and I think you'll admit too, that what ships with the Mac isn't always perfect for the job. And we'll try to point that out too as we go along
Yeah,
through the
yeah.
list. But I think for most folks, the default apps are more than enough to be productive. And, let's face it, with every release of Mac OS, these built-in apps are getting better all the time.
Yeah.
Now, Eric and I actually did an episode, and I talked about this in the pre-show, where we uncovered some of the more what we called hidden apps on the Mac. Now, that was back in episode 415, and the apps, or some of the apps that we uncovered included Dictionary, Digital Color Meter, Grapher,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Very good.
text replacements, which is, I guess, technically a system setting, so that would tie in with last episode. Screenshot, Screenshot has
Yep.
become an app in and of itself, but knowing the
Indeed.
keystrokes is super important. And
Yeah.
then I remember Eric also pointed out some of the accessibility controls in the Mac, like Zoom, which is also a system setting, but a very, very useful one. And
Mm.
then he and I have also done episodes on Automator. Now, while we won't necessarily cover all those individual apps again in this episode, and I'll put a link to episode 415 in the
Mm.
show notes for anyone who wants to
Cool.
catch those apps, we did uncover an app that I would like to uncover again today. And I'll get to that
Mm.
one in a bit, at least if Darren doesn't beat me to it. But, Darren, if you were to pick one app or combination of apps, well, there's a hint for you. If you were to pick an app that you feel are overlooked on the Mac, especially for folks who are new to the Mac, where would you
Mm.
start?
I think I would start with, um, as you say, a combination of apps. Just not necessarily one, but all of the main communications and productivity side of things that you would normally have to. I mean, say for instance, if you did have a Windows machine, um, there are some things lurking in there now that didn't used to exist, and they used to leave you alone effectively with nothing. And then
That's
you'd have
true.
to decide, oh, I definitely need to buy a copy of Microsoft Office, or else I can't get anything done. So
How
the Mac is
convenient.
in. Indeed, I wonder how they make lots of money. Or they yes, but yeah, it was. Uh, there is an extremely interesting list of base software that the Mac comes with that is essential, really, and
Mm-hmm.
means you don't have to buy anything extra. And as you say, there are limitations to some of them. And if you want to go further in detail with some things or functions, then there are other apps to grow into. But even as a set of beginner apps in a way, um, they're surprisingly good. And for many, even myself, many of these apps have become um, not just good enough, but so good that I don't need anything else at all. So the main first set that I would um, like say are right up there with the really important things is the communication side. So uh, email is covered with Apple Mail, which I really like. But some people like swear against it, but I swear for it. It's a very good app. I love Apple Mail. Um, so mail, calendar, and contacts are the main main ones, but together with reminders and notes, and notes
Mm-hmm.
especially is good because the functionality in Notes has increased dramatically, and you can do some very impressive contents of Notes, especially marking things up and using a pen and moving graphics around and fully graphic aware. So it's not just uh, a few little bits of text, but it's sort of very nicely um, uh, ability to. I mean, it's almost like a little bit of a mini word processor in there with full graphics support as well. So Notes is very extensive. So just those applications to start you off with, mail, calendar, contacts, reminders, and notes. That will that will mean you don't have to buy something in the Windows world that would be equivalent, such as Outlook, for instance, or Outlook has to come with Office, so you have to buy it, or you feel like you have to buy it. So when you move to the Mac, or you're new to the Mac and you're thinking about switching, um, there is nothing to buy. It's all just there and built in.
You are so right on that. One of the biggest frustrations with Windows machines is getting your mail, getting your calendars, keeping your contacts in sync. There are no good default apps. I mean, they have that mail app, and they have something called I think they call contacts. None of it really integrates well with services other than Exchange or Microsoft 365. It's just, it's all geared towards getting Microsoft that extra revenue of either selling a subscription or selling a standalone copy of Office
Yeah,
that
yeah,
or not to mention Exchange servers.
yeah.
There's this machine in place to help assure that these sales continue, and that's part of it, and not including the a basic way to integrate, let's say, Gmail with your Windows computer, short of
Mm,
accessing it through the web
yes,
browser, is
yes,
sorely lacking in Windows.
yeah.
I mean, heck, even if you
I,
have Outlook, it's sorely lacking if you want to connect with Gmail.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, nowadays it's slightly better. There is a a native version of Outlook, uh, a non-commercial version, as it
Right.
were. Um, but that really is just a web wrapper around what the website gives you. So unless the functionality that you want is already on the website, you're not going to get much further or any further at all. Actually, it's just an app pretending to be a website. So it's not very impressive. And I'd contend that the 5 apps built into macOS far outshine what little there is in Windows for managing your mail and calendar and contacts, and that's one of the top reasons for using a computer, just that communications and being able to send messages back and forth to people, and even just sending emails. I mean, it seems very basic now, but um, uh, yeah, it's just a much better experience, and there's a lot more power in the Mac OS apps than you would possibly realize, or someone new to the Mac would possibly realize. They would think it might be just a Surface equivalent to what is available on Windows, but it just isn't. It's several steps above that.
And yet, the ability for the Mac to natively connect to not only iCloud or .Mac or
Well, lots of
MobileMe or
services.
whatever
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
call it,
Google,
but
if you like, no worries.
to Google, to Microsoft 365 slash
Yeah,
Exchange,
full
uh, and
Exchange support. Yeah,
and even Yahoo and AOL right out of
if
the
you would
box, for
like,
goodness
yes.
sakes. This
Yeah,
is all native to the Mac, and it's been native to the Mac for several generations of
yeah,
Mac OS releases. It's
yeah,
just there. It's expected. We know that when we start up with a new Mac, if we want to connect to any of those services, and oh, yeah, by the way, any other standards based service, whether it be IMAP or POP or SMTP, we can
yeah,
do it right out
yeah.
of the box with the Mac.
And you
CalDAV,
can mix.
CardDAV, anything.
That's right. Yeah, you can mix and match all of them as well together. So if you want one
Exactly.
service from one account, provider, and one service from another provider, mix them together, no problem.
I've been doing that for years. Years I've been doing that.
Yeah.
And then,
Uh,
like you, I use most of those apps. In fact, I listed them out the exact same way you did: mail, calendar, contacts, reminders, and notes. That's exactly the order that I listed them out. And I use calendar almost exclusively for all of my calendaring. I do have Fantastical, but I'll be honest, and I've said this on the show before, the only reason I have Fantastical is because I want the little menu bar app. That's it. And I have since found a replacement for that in ItzyCal. So as far as the need for Fantastical or BusyCal, both of which are fantastic products, by the way, they're
yeah, they're
both
excellent. Yeah.
wonderful products, but the need for them has all but
Yes.
disappeared. It's all native tools from my viewpoint. Contacts is fantastic. Reminders is great. Notes, we had an entire episode on notes when I talked about my
You could do
migration
an
away from
entire
Evernote.
episode just on notes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are great tools. Unlike you, I don't use mail. I use what I consider to be a little bit more powerful, a little bit more full featured mail app in Mozilla Thunderbird. But
Yeah.
that's only because I have some very specific needs with that I can fulfill with Thunderbird, but I cannot fulfill with Mail in terms of alias accounts and things like that. It's just something that Mail
Ah, I
doesn't
see.
support,
Yes. Yes.
and that's fine. I do use Mail for my Apple iCloud account. Otherwise, I don't use it. And then on the
Yes.
phone, I use the Gmail app. But you know,
I think
these are
mail
all
is
fantastic apps. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
it,
Darren.
oh, sorry, talking over you there. I think mail is deceptively powerful actually when you delve
Mm,
into it. There are things you can do. People complain that it's slow, but I've never found it to be slow. It's
no, it's
been
not slow.
excellent for me. But Mail has a one killer feature that I just can't find anywhere else, which keeps me wanting to carry on using Mail, and that is its image handling. So when you
Mm,
normally in email applications, image handling is like an afterthought, um, and of course when you send images in emails, the whole email standard was developed at a time when even 8-bit sending 8-bit data to show an image was a challenge, and
right.
it had to be encoded as 7 bits for text just to make things super awkward. But it handles images particularly well. So, for instance, when you bring an image into Mail and you want to send it off to someone else, obviously, normally images nowadays are rather large, rather scary. So rather than you having to manipulate the files before sending them in an email, Mail will offer you a very nicely laid out menu there to choose whether you want to send a large, medium, or small version of that image,
Mm,
and
hmm
just one click, and it reduces everything. So you don't have to uh, alter the files you want to send, the images you want to send via an email, because it will just do it for you in one click. So you can say, I want all of these images to be small, click, click, and they're only a few hundred K rather than megabytes. So,
Very similar to what Gmail does in the native web application. Thunderbird does something similar in that if you attempt to attach a large file, and it doesn't matter what type of file, it will offer to uh, provide a way for people to download that with a separate link instead of embedding it within the message. But these days, most email services can handle up to what, 20 to 25 megabyte file attachments. So if you're going much larger than that, you probably should rethink attaching it anyway.
you should definitely
Yeah.
use a different method, but but Apple
Now,
handles it really well. Yeah.
I think all those apps are amazingly good. I don't really feel a need at all to use anything else for calendaring, for contacts, for reminders, for notes. I do use Joplin, but again, we had a whole episode about that. But Notes has become a very important part of my life, even hand in hand with Joplin. Um, I do see a little problem with Mail, especially with people who are new to the Mac, and that is that old habits are hard to break. And even though the Mac will encourage people to set up internet accounts, and they dutifully enter their Gmail or AOL or Yahoo or Microsoft
Uh,
information, and they check the boxes to connect to calendar and mail and contacts and all that stuff, and they follow all those steps. I still see people defaulting to using the webmail
uh,
and losing out on all the awesome features and all the awesome integration that mail and
yes.
calendars and contacts can bring them. So I think sometimes those old habits are hard to break, and even though mail
Mm.
might be in the background going ding 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 ding, they ignore that and they go to the webmail. Have you seen anything similar to that, or have you figured out a good
Um,
way to work around it?
oh, I see. I have seen. Uh, it's just it's discovery. I think that's one of the things that can be quite tricky, because there's so much there. There's so much free and built in, that it's very difficult to just discover that it exists.
Yeah,
So, as you say, a lot of people don't even uh, won't know things are there or available even when they are new to the Mac. And as you say, they'll default to using the trusty old web browser to do everything,
right.
which does which can be good in some ways, but it doesn't give you the integration, and how you can use your data between the apps. So, for instance, you can drop a note that appears in your calendar, and you can have a calendar event that appears on on uh, on reminders. So they're all integrated together, and you can drop in a mail reminder into your calendar events and back and forth. So it's just the the sort of thing that is difficult to discover. So I have seen people that don't realise things are there that they could take advantage of and work in a nicer way for them,
Hmm.
and they end up struggling going back and forth between tabs in the web browser.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned discoverability because discoverability is going to be kind of a theme to some of the apps that we talk about throughout this episode. Um, but one last comment on these particular apps, and these are core apps. These are built into
Mm,
every release of
yeah,
Mac
absolutely. The
OS.
core, yeah, yeah.
They're not Mac App Store apps like some of the ones we're going to talk about. But uh, if I'm being honest here, these apps are poorly named. Calling something mail or calling something calendar and then telling people
Oh,
that they need to add calendars to calendar or asking them to use reminders to keep their
oh,
reminders, it's just stupid and confusing. And
I love the simple one-word names,
it,
especially
it,
for things like pages, numbers, and keynote. Because,
sure,
for instance, numbers. I
but it
think
doesn't
numbers is a
mean anything
fantastic
to
name for a
people.
spreadsheet. If you
It
want to do
doesn't,
anything with numbers, then run the numbers app. It's
it,
great. It's so easy.
look, let's be honest. Word, Excel, PowerPoint,
Uh,
those don't really
well,
mean
that's
anything
meaningless. Yeah. What
either.
does Excel mean? Excel
Well,
in what?
that's exactly what I was going to say. That those don't mean anything either, but there's
There.
historical meaning to those names.
Yeah.
Pages, numbers, and keynote are just as confusingly named. Uh,
Oh no, I think they actually mean what they do.
mm,
So if you want to create
well,
some pages, you go to pages. If you want to
it
add up some numbers, go to numbers.
it's
If you want to
very
give someone a
difficult.
keynote,
Very
yeah,
difficult to provide tech support to someone over the phone when you're talking about adding calendars to calendar. It just is one of oh, no Apple Mail. No, the blue icon with the white envelope. Okay, now see the thing that looks
uh,
like a calendar, the thing that has today's date on it. Okay,
but you,
that's the calendar app. That's
but
the
you get the
app you
same
want to
thing on
open
Windows. Yeah,
to view your
you have
calendar.
to you have to say to people, oh, is the internet the blue E or the other E?
Don't get me started on Safari. But
Which
anyway,
color E is the internet?
Anyway, I think that is an issue with discoverability on the Mac. And
There
that
is.
was my point is that when you have these things that are named for the function, it is clear when you know what it means, it's clear, but when you don't know what it means, it's easier to ignore it. And I think that was kind of my point.
Yes, I think this is one of the main reasons why the apps that appear on the dock when you first buy a Mac and turn it on for the first time, I think they're very uh, carefully chosen, um, just to introduce you into the things that do exist because they're there front and center, they're right in front of you. So I think they've done a carefully chosen list of entries on the dock there.
They are very carefully chosen to annoy Mike when he has to remove them from the dock every time he starts a new Mac up.
Well, there's only a few I definitely remove because, again, it's discoverability. I mean, we know
Exactly.
that the
Yeah.
settings app is in the Apple menu,
Yeah.
but someone new to the Mac won't know where their settings are unless it's right there. So, although it's the first thing I remove, it would be the first thing that someone would need to look for if they're new to the Mac, and they wouldn't know that that setting is also available in the Apple menu because they don't know what the Apple menu is. They haven't
Well, I'll
discovered it yet.
I'll be honest, even though Launchpad is on there, the
Yeah,
whole reason that I mentioned in the last episode adding the applications folder to the dock and
yeah,
putting it in
yeah.
grid view and giving it making it look like a folder, but with that A on it, the little A on it for applications. The whole reason
Yes.
for that is to make the discoverability of all the other apps on the Mac easier. Um,
Yes, yes.
and
Things that
and
aren't
to
on the dock are difficult to discover. Yeah.
Right. And then the difference understanding the difference, and perhaps this is an episode in and of itself, but understanding the difference between what an icon represents when it sits on the dock and what an icon represents when it sits in your applications folder is something different too, that's
Yes.
sometimes tricky to come to grips with for a new user. So that could be a discussion we have in a future episode as well.
Wow. An icons episode. Excellent.
An icons episode, exactly. What about pages, numbers, and Keynote? Let's talk about those.
Right. Yes. Well, I did miss off because with the 5 core applications, I did miss off one or two, which I think would also go with them,
Okay.
which is messages and FaceTime. But we
Oh,
can come on
sure.
to that another
Okay.
time because that's part of the whole communication suite as well. So effectively, with FaceTime, you've got your own built-in Zoom, so you don't have to go off and download Zoom or some other Teams application. Or the Teams does exist in Windows, but then that can get rather confusing because there are 2 versions of Teams, and the corporate version doesn't talk to the other version, and vice versa. And it's a bit of a nightmare. Nobody knows what to do with Teams. But yeah, so it's so much simpler on the Mac having FaceTime there because your video collaboration is all there in the OS built in, but works wonderfully synced across your iPad and your iPhone as well, with including FaceTime. So it's the way the whole system fits together, rather than just individually having a video app on built into Mac OS. But and the same goes with messages. But anyway, yeah, coming over onto the other the big stuff. This used to be part of.
iWork.
You probably. There you go. You knew exactly where I was going with this. Yeah, that's it. This all used to be part of the iWork suite, and the iLife suite, which was the creative side of version of iWork in a way. That back in the day, I think iWork and the other one was one of the main reasons to get into and buy a Mac in the first place. The applications were so impressive, so good, that they actually sold Macs. I think that just knowing the existence of these applications sold people on the Mac in the first place. It rarely ever happens. So the main ones for the iWork side, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, I think are tremendous apps. I actually prefer them. So I've used pretty much all the Office suites, and there are certain things that Pages, Numbers, and Keynote excel at that the others just aren't as slick, don't do as well, aren't as fast. For instance, Pages is particularly good for graphics handling. So for doing things like newsletters and so on, it's particularly good. And you can see that a mile off. So when you put other word processors next to Pages and you import a graphics file with an irregular shape, and you tell it to move the text out of the way of your shape, and you move the shape around, do that in Pages, and you'll see the action and the rendering and the quality is 10 times better at least than every other word processor you will try next to doing the same action. So do the same action on both, and you'll see the difference. You'll see how smooth and how much better it is, and how much better the rendered pages look in Pages. Keynote is Numbers is the same. So although it's not as in depth as some of the things you might want to do with exceptionally large tables, perhaps in Excel, which is where we said earlier on that there may be a time where you outgrow some of these apps. But Numbers is particularly good at image handling and having an ability to have multiple tables talk to each other in very nice laid out ways, very simple to understand ways, much nicer than the multi-tabs way that Excel uses. So I think numbers is particular. I've got to a point now where I prefer to produce everything from a spreadsheet in numbers instead, and I'll just export it to other things because I just prefer how numbers does things, and it's so much nicer to produce graphs and reports and stuff from numbers because they look spectacularly well rendered, like they're made by a publisher rather than just flung together. So
It,
even the
yes.
templates are artistic.
The so in numbers there are two things that really set it apart in my mind, and one is what you just mentioned, and that is, for want of a better way of describing it, the floating tables. You don't
Yes,
just open up
I
with
think that
this, columns and rows view.
endless rows,
Endless. I mean, literally endless. You don't open up with that like you do
pretty
with
much
Excel,
endless. Yeah,
or like you open up with LibreOffice or any other spreadsheet in the world. You open up and you just get this endless rows and columns of empty space.
that's it.
With numbers, you have this amazing ability to create, like I said, floating tables, and you can resize them, and you can have multiple
Yes.
tables next to each other. And when you are linking data from one to the other in formulas and things like that, it's you can drag and drop from one to the other, and that's just amazingly easy.
Mm.
Numbers is the reason this brain of mine can actually understand spreadsheets. I
Well, that's it.
never
Yeah. Um,
I never had a great ability to understand what really was going on behind the scenes with spreadsheets until I started playing with numbers. The other thing that I miss sorely when I go to use Excel or any other spreadsheet in the world for that matter is the ability to easily drag and drop columns and rows. If I
mm,
want to rearrange my data, I in numbers I just click and drag it up to where I want it to be. That functionality does not exist in Excel. You just cannot do it. You have to cut, copy, paste, insert row, blah, 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 all that junk, drag and drop in numbers. Super, super simple. So those kind of things make it very easy for me, and I suspect most people who aren't really spreadsheet mavens, to understand what's happening and to actually put
mm,
a spreadsheet to good use.
yeah.
If I'm trying to build something from scratch, I'll build it in numbers. I do use Excel for some very specific tasks that Numbers has a little trouble with. I have a particular table of data that contains some client information that just does not fit right in a number spreadsheet. I've tried numerous times. I just can't get it to work right in Numbers. And I think I need to start fresh. I think if I started fresh, it would work well. But because
Yeah, maybe a different approach. Yeah.
I'm trying to not have to start over with it because it's historically important to me the way this is laid out. I just keep opening it in Excel. Um, Likewise, I think one of the issues with all three of I'm not even going to include Keynote. Keynote is its own thing. I don't
Yeah, that's why I've left it out because it's a special,
It's
um, yeah,
yeah, it's
in
a
its own
special
right.
one of the three in that if you're
Yeah.
building a presentation in Keynote, it's going to be a Keynote presentation. If you're building a presentation in PowerPoint, it's going to be a PowerPoint presentation. There just isn't a good way to translate from one to the other. But let me stick with pages and numbers though. I think
Mm,
one of the issues that Apple has with them, and I understand why they do this, but I would like this process to be made a little bit smoother and easier for people who aren't quite familiar with doing this sort of thing. If you open a Word document in Pages, please do not convert it to Pages and force me
yes.
to export it back to a Word document. Let me open it in a Word document, docx, and click save and have it save as a docx. That I think
That would be good.
that would make it
Yes.
much easier for people to migrate to it because that
Yes.
process of opening conversion and then, well, now I got to share it back with my Windows friends and exporting it
Yeah.
is problematic. And that is
It
one
is.
thing I wish that Apple would fix.
Well, you could call it a fix in a way, but I mean, it is tricky because there are things that the docx standard won't allow you to render. uh, which forces you to save it in a Pages native format to do things that aren't available in a docx format. So it's a bit tricky, because if you did want to embellish things more, but then you're right. When you do that, you break it for going back to docx. So it makes the conversion difficult if you do have to convert. But yeah,
I would counter that there's a way to get
it's
around
tricky
that.
because I can see it both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as tricky as we might think, because this is something that people are used to. And let's take Excel for an example. If you open up a CSV, a comma separated value file in Excel,
Mm.
and
Well,
you
that's
bold the
fine because it's
headers and
basic.
you add formulas and you make changes, what happens? Excel gives you a warning and says, "Hey, if you click save right now,
Mm.
and you save it back as a CSV, everything you just did is going to be lost."
Yes.
So there's a precedent for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
so
point. They could do the same thing with Word and Pages. Yes, Word
I
files and Pages. I think you're
yeah,
right. Actually, yeah,
either
just the
give a
right
warning,
prompt worded in the right way. Yeah.
exactly. Give a warning that if you save this document, it's not going to look quite right when you reopen it in Word. It
Yeah.
might
So
it might work. You might be able to open it, but it's not going to necessarily retain some of the formatting that's Pages specific. I think there's a way to work around that. But I
yeah.
do feel as if it would eliminate some of the confusion that some of the folks I've witnessed have when they try to work in Pages and Numbers and Keynote in a world within which they have to interact with folks who use Office.
Yes.
So in those cases, very often, if they want a smooth and more seamless transition, I'll encourage them when they want to work on a doc or Excel file to use LibreOffice, and just
Yeah. Yeah.
don't even don't even try Pages and Numbers. Use Pages and Numbers for all your day-to-day stuff, but don't use it when you want to be interacting with Windows
Well, that's
users.
it. It depends on your data, doesn't it? So
Yeah,
if someone wants to produce a wonderful looking newsletter that they want to put out in a PDF and send around, and also print out and have in traditional form as well, Pages is absolutely perfect.
yeah,
But
it's wonderful.
if you want to collaborate with a set of notes that is going back and forth between different computers and operating systems and so on, then you do have to choose the most compatible, or at least stay in the most compatible format.
Yeah.
So you can do that, whereby you import into Pages and only export to docx and just keep it without changing it. But yeah, it is tricky, because you can come a cropper with that. So, and like you say, then you have another Office suite just for compatibility, lurking in behind the scenes there, that
Right.
you dip into every now and then.
Which I do. I
I
mean,
mean,
I
LibreOffice is excellent.
I
I
have
mean,
all
one of
three.
yeah, yeah, it's very useful to do that sort of collaboration with people that are wedded to Office, and
Hmm.
can't or won't move away from it. Then keeping those files that you collaborate with people with working in LibreOffice instead. Yeah, that's definitely. But I wouldn't choose LibreOffice to write my graphically intensive newsletter. I'd definitely be
No,
choosing Pages to do that instead.
no, nor would I use it to publish an ebook, which Pages excels at as well. It does a
Exactly. Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
job of that, especially if you want to use Apple's bookstore.
That's right. Yeah. 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 There's functionality built into Pages that people don't realize is there. As you say, the EPUB standard. There's a whole section of Pages devoted to creating EPUBs and electronic publications and stuff that you can then publish on various sites, including the Apple Bookstore, and it's all integrated together. So you could self-publish just from the free apps that are available, built in and free on the Mac, such as Books and Pages together, to
Mhm.
create your EPUBs and publish them,
And as I mentioned
and
a
even get
while
paid,
ago,
actually.
so many of these apps are getting better all the time. Every release of Mac OS, we're seeing more and more improvements and more functionality added to them.
Mm,
And Pages and Numbers in Keynote are no exception to that rule. Some of the
yeah.
more recent changes that folks have just really loved to see finally make it to the suite after having disappeared for quite some time. Remember, some of these features I'm about to mention were there in iWork, disappeared, and now are finally making their way back again. But
Yeah.
one of them is simple mail merge. Mail merge was gone from Pages for the longest time, and
Oh,
it's finally back. Not, I'll say it's not as good as it used to be, way back when it was the iWork suite, but it's finally making its way back. Things like pivot tables
okay.
in Numbers
Oh,
are
yes.
that's been a couple generations of Numbers now that's been there. And then
They
another thing
disappeared for
that's
a
been
bit and
there,
now they come back again. Yeah.
yeah, another thing that's been there for a while is document collaboration. And one of the interesting things about that is that some of the folks I know who are longtime Apple users, devout users of the ecosystem, they love Pages and Numbers in Keynote, will still
Mm.
share documents with me via Google Docs. Why?
Yes.
Why? Why are you using Google Docs?
Yeah, exactly. I think people don't know that many of these apps don't just reside on your Mac. They may be difficult to discover, but also through iCloud.com, there are
Mm-hmm.
web versions of each and every one of them. Well, almost all of them. Um, so collaboration with a Pages document through iCloud to other people that don't have Pages or Mac even, and they can collaborate and uh, work beautifully with back and forth, going via iCloud versions of the documents.
Mm-hmm.
I often use my numbers spreadsheet within iCloud as well on other machines, and it it's incredibly it's amazing really because the, these are just web pages, but they're so finely crafted and coded that they behave as if they're native applications,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're extremely impressive. So what's available on iCloud, uh, as you say, I mean, people quite rightly say that Google Docs is the king of collaboration between systems because it was designed that way. But um, you can do the same effectively with Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. It's not quite there, but it's very close, I'd say.
And even if you're wholly within the Apple ecosystem, if everybody you are collaborating with is an Apple user, you don't even need to bounce to the web. You can do it all through the native apps that are running on your Mac, which is great.
Yes.
And honestly, I don't like the interface of Google Docs. I think it's lacking. I understand how great the collaboration is, but as you said, the iCloud editions of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote you might as well be using the apps. They are so well done. Now, Microsoft Office is getting there. The
Mm,
latest versions of Office and the web are quite good, but
yeah.
Google Docs it feels more rudimentary to me. So, if you're in an Apple ecosystem, or as you very rightly pointed out, even if you're collaborating with folks who are on Windows or Linux, you can do so by way of the Pages, Numbers, and Keynote on the web. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another way of it goes the other way too. So uh, our potential problems, or well, the problems we're thinking about when we collaborate with Microsoft Office users and wondering which applications to use on our Macs to do the collaboration. It goes the other way as well. So, for instance, if they were wanting to collaborate on a docx format file, they should really share that via the web, and you should be able to use the uh, oh, I've forgotten the name of it now. The Microsoft's website versions of their Office
I think
apps
it's just
to do the
office.com. Yeah.
Office.com,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that collaboration would work perfectly between um, somebody on a Windows machine with Office installed
Good
and
point.
someone on a Mac on a web browser. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. How do you feel about the discoverability of these apps? Other than someone who's coming to the Mac and is used to the words, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, maybe used to the word Outlook, maybe, used to seeing Microsoft Edge on their computer, they may not immediately recognize pages, numbers, and Keynote or even know what they are or what they do. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I mean,
I
the
think
icons are stylized now, so it is tricky. I
it's a
mean,
little trickier. It's not quite as clear.
Pages has a pen on it, but what does that mean? Pen, writing, maybe, yes. But the numbers icon is just a bar chart. So you wouldn't necessarily know that that was a spreadsheet just from
It's a
the
graphing
looking at
tool.
the icon. And well, at least the graphing tool has a picture of a graph on it on the
Right.
front.
Um, I think I misspoke last episode because I believe I mentioned that these are automatically installed on a new Mac, and I believe they are installed on a new Mac. I think they're not installed
Yes.
if you erase and reinstall your Mac. If you erase your Mac
No,
and you
no.
install fresh, they're not put back onto the Mac unless you
It's
migrate.
not. That's right. It's not part of the base
The
image file
core,
that gets
right?
the core of the operating system. It's not part of that. Um, as you say, there are freely available apps from the App Store to download after if you do decide to wipe your Mac.
Right.
But you're quite right. If you go to the shop right now and you buy a new Mac and you turn it on, you will see Pages, Numbers, and Keynote already there, pre-installed. But that doesn't necessarily mean it comes with the operating system.
Right.
So they're sort of both in a way. So now, for instance, on iPad and iPhone, you didn't used to be able to do this. You can now uninstall what's a core app pre-installed, and then re-download it again from the App Store. So it's a little bit of both,
Hmm.
and the Mac has gone the same way. Yeah. So
And there's still the process of needing to accept the apps, even if you already own them. If you set up a new Mac in the Mac App Store, it still asks you to accept these apps to add them into your account, and that would include Pages, Numbers, Keynote, iMovie, and GarageBand, and that
GarageBand, yeah,
associates those apps with your
with your
Apple
account.
account.
Yes.
I almost said Apple ID. See, it's
Nearly.
your Apple account. Uh, but that process, I think, if you don't know that you need to do that, if you don't know that you
Well,
need to
yeah, yeah. You
accept the
might not know it's
apps,
there
you
exactly.
might not
Yeah.
know it's there. But other than that, like you said, putting them on the dock, I guess that's probably the best Apple can do to
Well, that's it.
increase the
I think
discoverability.
I think the advice to be well, the advice should probably be that if you are offered free apps, say yes to everything, and you'll just get
Just
the whole experience.
accept it all.
If you accept everything, yeah. So if you then later decide that you don't want it, at least you've explored it and know that you don't want that then in future. But unless you say yes to everything, you're not going to know what's available, what's possible.
Right. Um, Let How about iMovie and GarageBand? I just mentioned a moment ago that those are two of the apps that you need to accept when you are setting up a new Mac
Yes.
or you have set up a new Mac in the Mac App Store under your account. It says, hey, you got to accept these apps. There's iMovie and GarageBand. I kind of feel as if GarageBand might be one of the most misunderstood apps that Apple puts on anybody's Mac.
Absolutely, it's difficult to categorize that, and if you're in the know and you're creative musically, then you know what it well when you dive in and have a play, you can start to discover what it can do. But it's
Hmm.
only when you dive in, and usually only people that are musical, I presume, would see to dive in. Although you can do a lot with GarageBand that isn't necessarily musical. Say you're a particularly good singer, but you don't play any instruments. You can layer your own voice up and do your own harmonics and
Hmm. Hmm.
all that sort of stuff. But also you can use GarageBand to edit and deploy a podcast out there to the world. an audio or even video podcast in combination with iMovie. So it's all there for creatives. Um, it used to be the iLife suite,
iLife,
which
exactly.
was one of the complements to iWork. But iLife was one of the amazing suites. Now it's only a few packages. It used to be more. Um, but nobody wants to make a DVD anymore. So one of my favorites
I'll admit, I
was
do from time to time. I do
well,
make a
maybe
DVD
from
from time
time
to
to time,
time,
but
but
nowadays it's sort of
I'm
like gone out
weird.
of fashion.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to absolutely love iDVD. There was nothing like it
It was
anywhere
such a
else.
well done app. So well done.
It's a shame that it's no more in a way, but it's only gone away because of the popularity of people publishing things in completely different ways now.
Right.
People don't put things on discs to give out to people anymore. It's just not the done thing.
If anything,
But
flash drives. I mean, the content, I think part of it is because the content is just so large now.
well, that's it.
4.7
Yeah, I mean,
gigabytes, or even a dual layer
it,
DVD. What is it? 8 point, what is a dual layer? It's not 9.4, I don't think. It's 8 point something with
no,
a dual layer DVD. But
that's right. Yeah,
even that's not enough to hold much of the content that we produce anymore these days. I mean, you should see the
yeah,
sizes of these files that we generate just from recording an episode of For Mac Guys Only.
yes.
It's crazy, and we're only streaming at 720. You know,
Well, that's it. I mean, 1080 is easy to get to. A lot of video pushed out there will be 1440p ish, maybe 2K.
hmm
And
and
obviously, a lot of
4K.
people do upload 4K video as a standard now. And 8K is on the horizon. So, yes, DVDs won't cut it anymore, or even Blu-rays, really. Even Blu-rays being 50 gigs. You can get some 4K content on there but it's it's tricky now. So yeah, there's just different ways of producing your content. But yes, GarageBand can be used for a lot more than just making music. But when you delve into it, there's all sorts of things you can uh, almost layer up. As you would say with recording a guitar, you could layer up all the effects pedals and produce some incredible music studio quality. So
Yeah.
it's not just um, little simple things that you would think you'd be able to create with this. You can create some extremely impressive content. I mean, if you went onto YouTube and you just had a little look at some of the video productions of people using GarageBand to produce some music and listen to the quality of the music. Sometimes it's indistinguishable from something professionally produced in a professional music studio software. So I think it's extremely impressive.
If even if you're not musically inclined, it's
Yeah,
almost impossible. It's possible, but it's almost impossible to produce something that doesn't sound relatively decent. So
that's right.
it's a fun tool to just play with, even if
Yes, especially
uh,
if you're learning. If you're learning anything musical, then dive into this and it'll be fabulous
and
to
I can
learn
only
from.
imagine it's going to get better with the advent of Apple Intelligence. I mean, it's just going to really
Well,
increase how powerful tools like GarageBand are. Now,
mm,
iMovie, by contrast, is a fairly well known app. A lot of people understand its usage, a lot of people understand the concept. And uh, I'll be honest, I haven't used it in quite some time. I only recently had the opportunity to fire it up again just a couple weeks ago, and I was impressed by the
mm,
progress that iMovie has made. It's still it's still falling a bit short in areas when it comes to comparing it to Final Cut. You know, there's still some
mm.
areas where it it's lacking some basic functionality that you get used to having when you use Final Cut. But for someone who just wants to throw together a nice quick video to share with the family, or even produce a podcast, like you said, or create a short film to share at the Macstock Short Film Festival every summer, there are some amazingly powerful tools in this app that comes free on
Yeah.
every Mac. And talk about creating content. I mean, the ability to export it to files that you can then share to YouTube or stick on a flash drive and I know the horrors mail to somebody, or hand to
Wow.
somebody, because you've
Email a
got
video.
this
Well, oh.
amazing epic that you've created, and it's really a wonderful tool, and
Yeah, yeah.
what comes with it out of the box is pretty full featured these days. Again, iMovie
Um,
went through a little bit of a dark period. There was a time between the iLife suite and when Apple started making it free, because iLife and iWork were both paid
oh
products.
yes, I remember the transition. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It
when
was
it
it was
when it
tricky at one
migrated
point.
when it migrated to the free versions, and they kind of overhauled the entire package. In fact, Final Cut and Logic both went through this period as well. When they overhauled the iMovie package, it was definitely lacking compared to the older version. But man, I was surprised at
Yes.
how much more full featured it is now than it was the last time I had used it. And so, for anyone who
Yeah.
wants to throw together a quick movie or podcast or anything really, I know someone who's making some ASMR videos with it. It's a great tool to do that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the benefits of not just the iMovie app itself is taking advantage of other things that are built into the operating system, which works together with iMovie.
Mm,
So, for
good
instance, one
point.
of the things that the Mac is particularly good at, especially with AI enhancement now, actually, the segmentation, video segmentation is got very good. So for instance, when you're looking at the outline of someone and cutting out their hair from away from the background, and perhaps you have a green screen, for instance, the process of separating the foreground from the background is called segmentation. And one of the things that the Mac is particularly good at is doing this in hardware assisted segmentation. So that works together with iMovie to produce absolutely stunning segmented video to replace your backgrounds and do other effects in a much higher quality way than you would see in other free video editors. So just the fact that the iMovie works together with built-in functions of macOS itself gives extended features like hardware-assisted segmentation. So excellent.
Now, again, these are apps that aren't necessarily part of the core OS. And by that I mean Pages, Numbers, Keynote, iMovie, GarageBand. They are pre-installed on a Mac, uh, but they're not installed if you wipe and reinstall your operating system because they're not part of macOS Sequoia, for example.
Yeah, they're not the core. Yeah, yeah,
But they're there. They're free, and the
yeah.
power that they provide you as an end user is incredible compared to any other paid package that's
Anything.
out there.
I don't.
Anything,
I don't think
anything.
there's anything. I mean, for instance, DaVinci Resolve is rather good as a video
Oh,
editor,
it's quite good, and that
um,
that is free for personal
and that
use.
is
If
free as well.
yeah,
Yes. So
hmm
there are equivalents, but
yeah,
for instance, trying to find an equivalent to GarageBand is difficult, and especially something like Keynote. You have to. Keynote is very special because. I mean, a lot of people may just discount it as being another way to experience death by PowerPoint, but it just isn't. There's a lot you can do with Keynote that isn't necessarily even anything to do with giving a presentation. So you can
absolutely.
produce animated graphics with it, for instance, and you can use those animations and probably and text crawls and other bits and pieces. And one of the things that Keynote is specifically good at that nothing else does to the same level is the ability to export its video at film grade quality. And we're talking cinema film grade quality.
hmm hmm
So you can export things from Keynote. Say, for instance, you export some animations, even with 3D now, 3D animation, compositing, and a bit of text animations, for instance, as part of your end credits for your iMovie that you want. So you take that output from Keynote and drag that into iMovie to give yourself some film quality level credits and post animations for the preview film that you're making, perhaps. Perhaps one of the things you want to do is be the next film director, and you want to create your film, but you want some professional quality animated stuff to appear at the end of your film. Well, that's where Keynote comes in. It doesn't have to be anything to do with giving a presentation. So the video output of Keynote is just so good. It's beyond any other thing that you can export any animated video with.
I really want to do this in a future episode. I have used Keynote to create lower thirds for this software
Exactly, that
package
sort
that
of
we're
thing you
using
could
right
do.
now.
Yes, yes.
We're using Ecamm Live, and talk about packages that have advanced beyond their original capabilities. Ecamm Live is one of them, and these days I have moved to creating lower thirds within Ecamm itself. However, in the past, when I wanted to create keyed out lower thirds animation,
Yes,
fresh animation for Ecamm Live, I would do it all in Keynote
yes.
and export it with a transparent background so that I could drag it into Ecamm Live and it would just play. You know, as soon as I click play, the lower third would appear and then it would disappear.
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredibly simple to do if you know that one trick, and that one trick is how to export it. You know,
Yeah, oh yes.
you
You
export it
have to
as
know how
a
to export it.
it's a I'm not sure if there's a shortcut way to pronounce this, but it's a WebM video.
Oh
Dot
yes.
WEBM. I don't know if there's a way to pronounce that, but
No, that's right.
that's
Yeah,
how you do it.
WebM. Yeah, yeah.
You know, you export it as a WebM and with a transparent background, and you can drag it into other applications, like you said, iMovie or
Hmm.
Ecamm or anything, and you
Yeah,
have this wonderful little animation that you created in Keynote. And Keynote is
yeah,
amazingly good at doing that sort of thing. So
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot more that you can do with a package like that than what you might expect.
That's
Absolutely.
right. Yeah. Like the animations that appear on the front of most people's YouTube shows. Um, that'd be perfect to use for that.
Yep.
You've already got the software free and built in to create your video front ends to what you upload to YouTube as to start you off with your YouTube channel.
It's all there. It's all, and the
It's
tools
all
to
it's
do
all
it.
there.
You do you Here's the thing. You do not need to use Canva, people. Stop using Canva. All the tools that you need are built
Are free and
into your
built in.
Mac. Now, where something like Canva excels is that they include hundreds, if not thousands, of templates that you can use as a
Mm,
starting point. And there's a lot fewer templates to use as a starting point in something like Keynote or Pages or what have you.
yes,
That
yes.
is really where Canva excels. But if I'm being honest, I would much rather get a pre-built template or a starting point from someone that I know who develops these things for a living and knows what they're doing
Yeah.
than to start with something like Canva. Um, can you tell I'm not a big fan of Canva? It's not
Yeah, there's something there as a hint.
something there, the little hint. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm more a fan of taking these tools that we have
Yes.
built in to
Well,
our
and
Mac.
that's it. That they're sitting there ready for you to use.
Yep.
You should dive in and try them and use them to see what the quality is there and what you can actually produce, rather than discounting things altogether and going to whatever people say is the favorite. Um,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping you from I mean, rather than diving into something pre-produced, there's nothing stopping you grabbing elements from different places, like a background from here and an object from here,
No,
and
absolutely.
combine them all together in Keynote to layer up and create layered animations. Uh, uh, something original that you've built yourself
Right.
can easily be made from elements outside and from other places. But I think the ability to take them all and layer them up yourself in Keynote is unmatched. It's fabulous.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we will demo that in a future episode. Maybe we'll make a quick, not a full episode of For Mac Guys Only, but maybe we'll do some little quick tutorial type videos, and we'll show
Oh
them how to do
yeah,
that, because I think that can
yeah.
be really useful to folks.
Like what you did for shortcuts and your programming series. You did a
Yeah,
little bit of a programming thing. Yeah, something like
yeah,
that.
we could
Yeah,
do
yeah.
something like
I think
that.
that'd be good. Yeah.
Okay, so much of what we talked about are what we might consider core apps, even if they don't come with the operating system. You know, if we're talking about mail, calendar, contacts, reminders, notes, pages, numbers, Keynote, iMovie, GarageBand, these do ship with a new Mac. They're on
Yes.
every new Mac as you
Yeah.
set it up. Um, if they're not on the Mac, they're free to download. So they're easy to get. They're apps that can allow us to be productive out of the gate. But there are a virtual ton of apps on the Mac that are undiscovered, are truly hidden. And
Mm.
that was the point of that episode 415 when Eric and I talked about dictionary and digital color meter, which is one of my favorites on the Mac, Grapher, text replacement, screenshot. You know, these are all apps that are there and ready for you to use, and you do not need to go out and get another third-party app to do some of this functionality. It's there, and
Yep.
it's ready for you. Now, I know you had your own list. I mentioned a few there that were hidden apps. I think some of the others on your list were maybe hidden apps, and while we don't necessarily have to go super in depth on any of them, what are some of the
Mm.
highlights of the other hidden apps that you'd like to bring to light today?
Well, some of the other hidden apps, I would say, probably that goes together with GarageBand and iMovie. There's QuickTime, of course, which is a video editor in a way. Very
It's gotten
simplistic,
better.
but you can it's yeah you can do surprising things with it. So, for instance, re-exporting video and recompressing things, and topping and tailing video, and taking sections out, and putting section markers on things. And there's quite a few things you can do uh, with inside QuickTime, which people may not even realize is there. So, say for instance, make an MP3 track from a video and export that separately as just the audio. Things like that. Just editing bits and pieces from video and audio. And also voice memos is quite an interesting one, because it's just sitting there. Um, and it automatically syncs against iCloud, which is quite nice. So if you're the type of person that doesn't want to type lots of things up, and you want to just to speak a voice memo and have that saved and synced so that you can access it on other devices, voice memos is quite nice. You can even use it. I've heard of people using it with laptops and on the go. Say, for instance, on their phone in the car. Um, they're a vocalist, and they will sing a song in voice memos as a first version of the song that they're working on,
Really?
and then
I've not heard
you can
that. That's pretty cool.
you you can even overlay some audio on top as well, so you can sing back to yourself. Um, so there's more in voice memos than you think there is.
Wow.
So, and
I have
that
not
just
heard
goes
people using it
together and
that way.
complements. It goes together and complements the other ones. And like you say, it's hidden. It's just sitting in the applications folder. But unless you go in there and delve, you may not even discover that they exist. But they're sitting there. And the same with things like one of the core apps, I think now. Well, it's new now, so it used to be something different, but now the passwords app, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is a must-have. Having a password manager is a must anyway, but we always used to have to go off and buy one or subscribe to a service and so.
Right.
But it's free and built in. It's already there. So now it's been made a lot more friendly. You could access some of the back-end data previously without the passwords app, but it was certainly not friendly, and you could stumble around, and you could do a little bit of damage in there if you didn't know quite what you were doing. But now the password apps allows you to use that whole ecosystem of synced passwords and having them integrated into everything else. Say, for instance, password fill-in in Safari and everything else is fully automatic. But the password app now makes that a no-brainer. You already have a password manager free and built in.
Not only was it truly a hidden app before, but it's now a hidden app, and that people need to discover it. They need to know that it's there and that it's ready for them to use it in daily life to safely store their passwords, to safely store. Well, that's really it, right? I mean, it's primarily at this point
Well,
just for.
passwords, yeah, absolutely.
It's not like some of the full featured apps. It's not like 1Password in that it doesn't necessarily have the ability to store notes or payment information or anything like that.
No.
But honestly, I've never been a fan of storing that kind of stuff in a password keeper anyway.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you could argue that a password manager is the wrong place to store a note.
Yeah,
Um, and the clue's in the name for the Notes app. That's the perfect place you should put your notes. Um, and you can secure them. You can have secure notes inside the Notes app, and that's what it's for. And the password manager is for managing passwords, and that's what that's for.
yeah,
But you can expand on some of the passwords abilities there, because there is a free form notes part for each saved password, so you can add
true.
additional notes to each one, and that can be a lifesaver looking those up. When you're out and about on your phone, you can see all of the synchronized notes that you have together with that password, so that can be very handy.
And it does better expose the saved Wi Fi passwords. You could always get to
Mm,
them if you forgot a Wi Fi password for an access point that you don't typically connect to. So maybe you don't, if you've connected to it in the past, it was always saved, it was always in Keychain. You could do a search for it and find it, but now they are there in the passwords
yes,
app.
and they're separated out, so you can. They're not just all together with jumbled up
Right.
with everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, passkeys. Passkeys are stored in it
Oh,
as
passkeys.
well.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, that's the future. But that's stored in there too. What else? What other cool hidden apps?
Oh, well, there's quite a few. I mean, there's stuff that is lurking around in your applications folder that you may not realize is there. I can't remember if this is sitting there on the dock when you buy a new Mac. I'm not entirely sure if it is, but if it isn't, there is a TV app
Oh, it is.
in
It is
your.
sitting there on the dock. Yeah,
Oh, excellent. So at least
yeah.
that's discoverable. So that's good. But I mean, it is a service that Apple sell you extra on. Although when you buy a new Apple device nowadays, I think you get is it 3 to 6 months or something of free access to Apple TV Plus, so you can. Um, in, I mean, I've heard of a lot of people actually using, for instance, an iMac as a TV instead.
Mm,
So not only is it their computing workstation, but if you have an iMac in the bedroom, that might be your secondary TV, and having the TV app built in that you don't have to download, install, configure, fiddle around with. It's all connected through your Apple account now for what you register for. The TV app will just magically work and can turn your iMac into a TV. So rather than buying a TV and a computer, you only need to buy one thing, because there's stuff available there that you didn't even know was there, and you can almost treat it like you've got a TV experience. So, for instance, one of the other hidden features is not on the Mac, but it goes with the TV app, is the remote control. So
mm.
your Apple device will understand if there's a device somewhere in your house that's playing an Apple TV um, stream or some content, and it will just appear on your home screen when you pick up your phone. So you can then use your phone as the remote control for your iMac which is behaving like a TV. So A, you don't need a remote control, and B, you don't need a TV because it's all
Right.
there.
And the watch too, by the way.
And your watch, exactly. Yes,
Uh,
indeed. I forgot about the watch. You can do that with watch too.
so it is true that Apple uses the TV app to help sell subscriptions to TV
Mm,
Plus. That's true. No different than Apple using the music app to sell subscriptions to their various music services.
yeah.
But historically, what we need to remember in terms of how the TV app might be useful is that TV and podcasts and music used to all
Mm,
be one single app called iTunes.
yes.
And Apple separated them out into the three apps. So TV has become the way to consume video content that you used to
Mm.
have kept within iTunes.
iTunes. Yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
it could be TV shows you've purchased and downloaded or just installed, dragged into iTunes. It could be
Yeah.
movies that you get through, let's say the Movies Anywhere program. If you buy a Blu ray and it's got the code and you get the
Yeah.
digital
Yeah.
copy free and you
Indeed.
subscribe to Movies Anywhere, that automatically appears in there, even if you,
Mm.
didn't purchase it. So, TV is really where you consume your video content,
Yeah.
podcasts, your podcast audio and video content, and music, the music content that used to be within iTunes as well. So historically, that was its purpose, and now its purpose is to also sell Apple's TV Plus service, which, by the way, is a fantastic service and has
Which is
great
excellent.
programming
Yeah.
on it.
So yeah.
But that's why I am never offered the free months of Apple TV Plus because I'm already a subscriber. So they won't let me get 3 months and add it onto my plan, which is a bit of a bummer. But yeah, there you go.
I was very lucky. I bought an Apple product. I can't quite remember which one it was, but I bought something reasonably expensive. I think it was an iPad actually, but I bought something from Apple, and it was the time when they just started with the Apple TV Plus service,
Mm,
and they were just promoting it, and the early promotion was a year's worth of free Apple TV. So
wow.
I got that. So I got the whole service for a year, and then at the end of it, it was like, yes, I can't give this up now because I've got into it so much. So the marketing worked.
It does indeed work. I'll tell you that. I think I had a
It
similar
worked on me.
1 year free, and I'll tell you where their marketing didn't work is I got the free year of MLS, Major League Soccer here in the States. I got the free year for that,
Mm,
but did not re-up for the next year because it wasn't something that was worth it to me to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
But TV Plus, definitely, I subscribe to that. While we're talking about some of these hidden apps, I'm going to point out that some of the apps that we've talked about are just sitting straight in your applications folder. So, for example, we mentioned dictionary. That's right there in your applications folder, and you can pop it open and take advantage of the thesaurus and look up words and all that kind of stuff. That's right there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right in the applications folder. TV is right
yeah.
in the applications folder. Find My is right in the applications folder. There's so many great little tools that are in there. Passwords is right in the applications folder. But there is a folder within that applications folder,
Oh,
and
utilities.
that's where some of the truly hidden gems are on your Mac.
Very
And
hidden.
I'll just want to mention a few of these because they're really worth looking at. So within your applications folder is a folder called utilities, and within utilities are some great applications that you might want to check out, including if you are into music composition and or connecting keyboards to your Mac, you might look at the Audio MIDI
Oh,
Setup app.
yes. The MIDI
Um,
controller. Yeah, yeah,
there's the color sync utility, which is great if you want to assure color accuracy for your displays and printers and whatnot. Digital color meter was one that I mentioned. It's a great way to pick colors out of graphics and websites and things like that and get the hex code or the decimal code or whatnot for that particular color so you can assure that you've got the
yeah,
correct and
yeah.
accurate color for a project you might be working on.
That's it.
Disk
It's nice
disk
to have that
utility.
system wide, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Disk utility is great for managing those disks on your Mac. For example, you connect an external SSD that you just purchased, and it's formatted as FAT, extended FAT, because that assures the most
exFAT, yeah.
compatibility when they sell them. Well, you can open up Disk Utility and reformat that or erase it in Mac OS nomenclature as an APFS drive and improve its ability to interact with your Mac in a speedy fashion. Grapher is in there. We mentioned that in episode 415. Fantastic utility for graphing formulas and all kinds of
Yeah.
cool stuff. Screenshot is in there, which is now its own standalone utility. You no longer have to memorize all the seemingly arcane keyboard
they're
shortcuts, although they
they're
are
etched on my brain.
they're etched on my brain too. But Screenshot is there, and it's great, especially if you want to do stuff like capturing video of your screen.
Yes,
You
yes.
can remember
It's
Command
all
Shift
built in.
5, right? But having the screenshot utility allows you to make some of the tweaks to it, like where you're capturing audio from and how much of the screen you're capturing and things like that
Yeah.
before the capture takes place. Um,
You can make your own little screencasts with those if you want, and then put
you
some graphics on with Keynote, and you've made a screencast.
Absolutely, absolutely. Migration Assistant, of course, is something we've talked about plenty of times on the show. There's a script editor in there for folks who are into coding. Terminal is in there. Here be dragons, but it is wonderfully important and necessary that terminal exists on your Mac. And you may find from time to time that you do need to pop into it. Know that you are somewhat protected from doing the most dangerous stuff on your Mac
Mm,
with terminal, unless you specifically pop
somewhat.
into a super user mode,
Yes.
but
Be careful.
do be careful. Do be careful and make sure that you understand the commands you're about to enter before you do so. But terminal's there,
Yeah.
and that's great. Um, I'm a particular fan of popping into console when I want to dig into the error logs on my Mac and find out
Oh, yes,
why
yes,
something
yes.
might be happening that shouldn't be
Why
happening.
something went wrong.
Yep. And of course,
Yes.
Activity
Very
Monitor
good.
is a wonderful tool for your Mac to help you understand why things might be running a little slow. You can check what's going on with the CPU, with memory, with disk space and usage, network, and there's even an energy tab in there's an energy tab in Activity Monitor now too, so you can see what energy sucking vampires might be running on your computer and draining your battery. So Activity Monitor is
Uh,
just a fun little tool to go into as well. So those are some of the other hidden apps. Anything? There's one more that I want to talk about. I've talked about this on the show before, and I just want to bring it up again because it's such an incredibly useful tool. But before we get to that one, which is what we'll end on, what else did
mm.
you want to mention, Darren, as far as neat
Oh,
neat
this is
apps
tricky
that
because
folks need to know about?
yeah, it's a little bit tricky because I've got a fair list, but I didn't want to like just say what all of them are. I
Definitely.
There's one in particular, but I'll get onto that in a second. I also like your examples as well. For instance, the 3D Grapher app built in is deceptively good, especially if you are um, studying mathematics. Um, you really need to know a few of the maths type equations that you would like to graph. It's a little bit beyond me, some
Yeah,
of
you
that.
have to have an
Um,
understanding of some
you do, yeah.
some
Although,
more advanced
although,
mathematics to understand the formulas you're putting in. But it's
yeah, it's
there if you need
understanding
it.
it. It's just,
Yeah.
it is, and in the Grapher app, which is a built-in app, there is an examples menu which is also built in, so you can click on the examples menu and go through some examples that are already there that have been pre-made, so you can have a play with the Grapher app and what its output looks like with some built-in examples. So it's good to see that there's not only a built-in app, but within that built-in app there's built-in examples to show you how to use that app, which is even more impressive. Um, but I'll mention just a couple others. There's Freeform is an interesting one. I've not got into it in depth, but that is a very interesting concept, especially with collaboration. So when you're collaborating, say for instance, you're, I mean, I am a little bit as well, a visual thinker. And you say, for instance, you are producing something like a mind map or something like that, but you want to collaborate on that with in-depth visuals from another person who's contributing, for instance, to this amazing thing that you want to produce, and finally, for instance, produce a PDF from it, for instance, once you've finished.
Right.
But in your collaboration stage, Freeform is really interesting because it's a freeform infinite canvas app. And the idea behind the infinite canvas is you can zoom almost as much as you like, although there is technically a limit, but the limit is so far that it feels like it's almost infinite. And they're just these type of apps are called infinite canvas apps. So the idea is you just dump content, swirl it around, make it nice. Somebody at the other end sees what you're doing, and they can manipulate things as well in real time whilst you are. So it's a collaborative infinite canvas. So it's a bit interesting to get your head around, because most people aren't quite used to working that way, but the tool is there. And the only downside is it's built into the Mac, and it synchronizes through the Apple
iCloud.
iCloud, effectively. Yeah, exactly. So it's very tricky to work with, say, somebody else who's on a Windows machine with the Freeform app, because they just don't have access to it. And it's currently not available on iCloud, although I think that might be coming late at some point. To enable this more deep collaboration with that, and that will bring the tool out to a new level, I think. But it is, if you are collaborating with other people on a Mac and you want to investigate this sort of method of collaboration with an infinite canvas, then definitely explore the Freeform app. It's just sitting there, built in, ready for you to use, and people may not even realize what it is. It's difficult because, like we've said before, the icon for it doesn't really say what on earth an infinite canvas app is. What does it do?
Well, I'll give you another example.
There's all sorts. You can even drop sound forms and other things on there as well. So it's not just visuals, but it's very, very versatile.
I'll give you another example where Freeform could be very useful, and that is when you are doing something like we're doing right now. When you're doing a live stream,
yes,
we could bring the Freeform app into the live stream, and even though we're not collaborating, be drawing on it and creating mind maps and things like that can then be displayed to the folks who are watching the stream. So there are other interesting ways you could use it, even if you don't use it for collaboration. But yeah, like you, I've played with it, and it's really cool and it's interesting. And there's not much lag from the time that you input something, especially if you input something on your iPad. You've got your Apple Pencil and you're inputting on the iPad, and you let it come over to your Mac. Again, another good example for demonstrations. If I want to demonstrate or write on the screen, I could be writing on the iPad with the pencil, and the Freeform app on the Mac would be picking up that content. So
yes,
yeah, it is a very interesting app, and I'm only hesitating a little bit because I haven't used it enough to know where some of the most amazing ways to take advantage of it come into play.
Yeah, you can also use it standalone, so you can create a design, for instance, something very quick that you can put together that still looks good, and then select that and export that as a nicely formatted PDF, for instance. So you can use it without collaborating. And I have seen someone actually use it as you said, with a pen to highlight things, and they were using it to do a presentation. So the Mac was displaying what Freeform was seeing, and someone who was giving the presentation was using a pen to mark that up in Freeform on the iPad. And the synchronization was so fast that as they drew with the pen, it synced across to iCloud to the Mac, and
Yeah.
then was displayed on the projector in seconds, or just 1 or 2 seconds. So it was very, very responsive, but still allowed the person giving the presentation to wander around within the audience and circle things on the data that they were presenting, but without having to interact with the Mac at all. But the Mac was just displaying this free form canvas, and it was quite an interesting, freeing way, a different way of doing a presentation. So it was really novel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I don't know is if Freeform can remove the background of the canvas. So, for example, if I
I don't
bring
know. Good
Freeform
question.
in as an overlay, if I were to bring
Mm.
it in as an overlay, can I draw on the screen but have that
Oh,
drawing
like the app that you
allow the
mentioned
background to
in the
come through?
previous. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That would be interesting
We'd
and
have to
something
experiment.
cool to play with. All right, so now we have two things to demo in short format. Is
Oh,
only quick tips here. We've got
cool.
freeform and we've got animation with Keynote. Those are two that we're going to have to do in the coming weeks, Darren.
Okay. I'll have to think of a workflow there. Yeah, no worries. We've also got the built-in weather and maps apps, which I particularly like, um,
Weather is great.
especially especially the weather app. Yeah, the weather app
Yeah.
is superb. Um, and I've got a particular bugbear with the Windows weather app because that is hideous. I've got some horror stories that I might. Uh, I'm not sure if I can share within the show, but I can share it outside the show probably. But the Windows weather app is notorious because it's plastered full of adverts. It's so full of adverts and inappropriate adverts, I might add.
Wonderful.
Um,
That's great.
well, yes, excellent, isn't it? And they're horrific, and it makes the apps pretty much unusable. And that's one of
Wow.
the other benefits of a lot of the apps in the Apple ecosystem is that Apple's business model isn't much to do with advertising at all. It does have little pockets hidden away, but it's extremely subtle, and they're very. I mean, you'd have to hunt to find them if you delved into maybe the Books app or something like that. You might find an ad or two. And in TV, there'd be some promotions maybe, but nothing like the horrific mess of the advertising that's given, forced on you if you try to use the Windows Weather app. It's got so bad. I'm at a stage now where I think I'm going to have to think about banning the app entirely from thousands of computers. It's that bad. So that's one thing you will not see in the Apple Weather app.
No.
There are no adverts, and
No.
effectively in all the other apps that you use, there is no advertising. Apple's business model is very straightforward. Give us money, and we'll give you a nice product. It's not give us smaller amounts of money or no money, and we'll steal as much data as we can from you and try to exploit you and make money from advertising and make life horrifically awful for you to try to use these apps. So I like Apple's business model being straightforward. You get what you pay for.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
So yes, and the Maps app as well. So I do like that. It was very much criticised when it first came out. There were issues, especially I remember one in Australia where they said the maps were so bad that if you took the wrong turn, you may not come back. um, but interestingly, it was overblown because, funnily enough, when that was going around, I was in Australia at that time,
Oh,
and I
really?
was used.
Great.
Indeed, yes, I could see it. So I knew what they were saying was wrong and overblown. I was actually using the Maps app whilst I was in Australia, so that we were able to go up the right roads and get to where we were going. Um, I thought it was brilliant because at the time the the Google Apps um, map Maps app um, used a lot of data. So at the time, I didn't have any data at all. So what all I did was to preview the route that we were going to go on in Apple Maps in the hotel, and then in the car when we had no access to any data. Um, it was the Maps app was so efficient that all of our route was already stored in memory. So we didn't have to have any data connectivity. And not only did we get where we went to without having to spend extra on data services, but we got there safely, and all of the directions were sound and perfectly good. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think a lot of the things that people were saying about the Maps app early on were a bit overblown.
Overblown, but also accurate to an extent. In the no, and I say this with all seriousness. Apple Maps in the early days, and even about halfway through its current life, I do test it from time to time. And the most recent tests, no, not the most recent, maybe about 3, 4 years ago, which is a lifetime in technology, by the way. But 3, 4 years ago, when I was giving it a little bit more serious test in this area where I know the roads, it did
Oh, I see.
literally direct me down a dead end. And I knew not to go that way, so I didn't go that way. But as it was trying to get me to go some way that would be impossible to go until or unless I shifted my vehicle into four-wheel drive. That's about the only way I could have gone that way. Um, but the biggest issue I have with Apple Maps is not that. I have used it for some less critical directions recently, and it's done a good job. Okay, and I do like the way that it announces how to recognize upcoming turns. I think that's a lot more
Yes,
user friendly than, say,
it's nicer
Google Maps
than
is.
Google
Yeah.
Maps. Yeah, yeah,
So in that
for that.
regard, it's very good. What I don't like is the this is the route, like it or lump it approach that it takes. I sometimes know that a particular route is better than what any mapping app suggests. It might be the most fuel efficient, it might be the speediest, but maybe I want to go the other way because I know that this particular route is going to route me through a neighborhood I don't want to go through, or because I know it's going to be slow going through there because of the stoplights and blah, blah.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to go an entirely different way. And being
yeah,
able to change the route easily is difficult in Apple Maps. To be fair, it's difficult to do in Google Maps on the phone as well. It's not
yeah,
difficult to
yeah. That's
do
it.
Google
It's
Maps on the
difficult.
web. It's very easy. You literally drag and drop the route and it changes it. There is a definite disconnect between the routes that you plan in Google Maps on the web and the routes that you plan on the phone. Even if you say, send this route to my phone, it will still
Mm,
sometimes reroute it once it gets to the phone. So it's not like it's a unique situation to Apple Maps, but
it's
the
difficult across lots of maps platforms. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the ability to on the Mac, not on the phone. I don't expect it on the phone, but the ability on the Mac
Mm,
to change routes more easily without creating waypoints.
yeah,
Because to me,
yeah.
waypoints are annoying. If I add a waypoint to
It's
say
quite a
this
lot
is
of
the
effort.
way I want to go, it expects that I want to stop there, and I don't want to stop there. I just want to go that way. And this is again, it's a problem with all mapping apps, but it is
Yeah.
something that I wish I could drag and drop routes to change them in Apple
Mm.
Maps, and it's just not something I can do at the moment. But it's a great tool
It's
overall.
coming. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
probably the
yeah.
biggest issue I have with it right at the moment, and it may come. Apple keeps making changes. I wasn't super impressed with the most recent changes to it because it didn't benefit me in terms of a user.
The
but
hiking stuff, yeah.
the hiking stuff. I mean, it's great. I love that the hiking stuff is there, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not likely to use it. Uh,
No.
but navigating traffic or navigating routes when I'm trying to go out of state and go to a
Mm.
destination I'm not familiar with is where it hasn't quite gained my trust yet. Uh,
One
it
of one
will.
of the
It will. It's getting better.
cool. One of the particular things that Maps is good at in the UK, to give you a UK slant on it, is the public transport side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very good when you say, for instance, you are getting directions to go quite far away, and there's quite a lot of stops. Maybe you take a train, maybe from that train you take a bus, maybe that bus will go on to a boat and go, and go across to get another train.
Which it
So
could.
so you've got several things going on there. It's particularly good at understanding the exact times for each mode of travel. So as you say, for instance, get off a train to catch a bus, the bus timetable information is perfect, and it will say
Mm,
you need
good.
to get off this train at this time, walk this distance to this bus stop, and this bus stop will have a bus arrive in the next 10 minutes, and it does. So that's one
That's
thing
pretty
that
good.
it's very good at.
Yeah.
In this country, at least, it's good at the public transport side of things and getting all the timetabling right. So it's very, very nice for that.
Yeah. That could be incredibly useful, especially with all the various modes of transportation that you just mentioned. we, where many of us live in the states, we don't have any public transportation, or if we do, it's somewhat limited, and we might have to drive. For example, I
Yeah,
might have to drive 12 miles to get to the train that takes me into downtown Chicago, which is fine, but they're just, it's not something I can walk to. So
yeah,
there's a lot more driving when you get out of the city here. If you're within the city, it's a different story. But when you're out of the city, when you're a good hour plus out of the city, as so many
mm,
people are here in the states,
yeah,
it
yeah.
that type of thing is less important. Yeah,
Well, America is kind of huge
kind
compared to the
of.
UK, absolutely.
Yeah,
So you guys are good. You guys have got a good excuse for having to rely on the car more and personal transports.
yeah.
So so here you're not very far away from the coast at any one moment, wherever you are in the country. So hopping on a train, maximum one hour, and you're at the seaside. So
So don't
it's a
forget
different
about
kettle of
Apple
fish.
Maps,
Yeah.
people. It's a
Yeah, especially if you
fantastic
live in the
tool.
UK. Apple Maps is
Yeah,
excellent if you live in the UK, that's for sure.
fantastic tool. And I know that the 3D mapping is pretty darn good on it too.
Oh, I love the 3D maps. Yeah,
Yeah.
the buildings look they're not entirely perfect, but they're much better than Google's 3D. Google's tends to look a bit melted, like all of the buildings have been in a rather uh, unfortunate heat zone incident, and they've all had a bit of a melting problem. Whereas Apple's are higher resolution, and the square buildings are actually square and straight, whereas Google's 3D maps have lots of buildings that should be square, that definitely aren't square, and they curve around all over the place.
Are you sure they're not just buildings built in the 1500s, Darren? You do live in the UK
Well,
after
no,
all,
yes, there are Tudor houses around that include no
that are
straight
not
lines.
square. Let's be
That
honest,
are
they're
definitely
not
not
square.
square, indeed. Yeah.
Uh, okay, so Maps is a fantastic tool that maybe enough people don't take advantage of. Anything else before we wrap up this conversation?
I have one more,
Okay.
and it's both not important at all and also important in a way. um, so there's only one game that comes with your Mac,
Mm,
which is chess,
yes.
and it's a rather nice implementation of chess, and the application is really nice. A 3D chessboard you can move around, and there's a light source shining on the chessboard with making all the pieces look particularly nice. And not only that, not only does it look really good, but it plays well as well, and you've got a really classy game of chess. And it's just to mention the differences in what you get free with the Mac is you get a classy game of chess, whereas on Windows you get Candy Crush Saga, which is definitely not a classy game. Um,
Well,
so it's just a different level of polishedness.
to be fair,
The
that's a
game you
paid
get in the Mac
placement.
is a really nice. Well,
That
yes, exactly,
yeah,
exactly. The chess game you get with the Mac is entirely free of any advertising, of any money involved. You just enjoy it.
yep. You
Whereas
just
what
enjoy it.
you're being
Exactly.
pushed with Windows is not a good experience.
And yes, the chessboard in 3D looks amazing. Chess has been in the Mac OS for
Yeah, it's
forever. It's been
it's a
in there
tradition now. Yeah.
really, really long time. I do believe, can't you go with a traditional flat
Oh,
view as well?
yes, you can indeed. Yes, you can have a flat view.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
I,
Yeah,
I
you
thought you
can
could.
change all the pieces. You can have flat pieces or nice shaded pieces made out of different materials: wood, metal, marble, etc. There's all sorts of things you can play with in there. But it's just a classier experience for a built-in game than what you get elsewhere, let's say.
It's no battle chess. Battle chess has always been my
No, oh,
favorite
well, that would
version
be
of chess.
superb. Well, that's
It,
different. No,
it's
yes,
no
if they
battle
could.
chess, but it's quite
That's
good.
Battle Chess would
Quite
be
good.
good. I think Apple should license Battle Chess definitely.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
That would be
I would
amazing.
I would love to see Apple's rendition of battle chess. That would be super cool.
That could be incorporated into chess, and that would be a stunning thing to incorporate into chess as a hidden feature.
So I'm gonna wrap up the underutilized or underused or misunderstood apps. That's another way to describe what we're talking about. With one that I've mentioned here on the show before, and in fact, I did mention it in episode 415 as one of the hidden apps that we wanted to put a spotlight on when we had our discussion, and that's Preview. Preview is one of those apps that is just so misunderstood when it comes to its capabilities for working with PDFs. I think people understand that it can be used for viewing images. It's great for previewing images of all sorts. But when it comes to seeing it as a proper and professional PDF viewer and markup tool, and that those last two words are important, a
Mm,
markup tool,
yeah, yeah.
it's often overlooked. And I think that's because one of the first things that people do when they want to view PDFs is they install something like Adobe Reader. It's like
Oh,
no, I'm not saying it's a good thing, Darren. I'm saying that that's
I
the
know.
natural instinct is to install Adobe Reader, right? It's what
Yes,
they're used to and what they think they have to install if they want to
yes.
open PDFs. And I think, again, here's this word again, but the discoverability of preview is somewhat low. Now, the good news is
Mm.
if you don't pre download Adobe Reader, if you don't pre download PDF Gear, if you don't pre download PDF Pen, man, the PDF Pen, that got sold off.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not
just
sure
not the
about that
same
now.
app
There's
anymore. I probably shouldn't even mention
no.
PDF Pen, but I mention it because it is an app that I
uh,
used to use and I used to
It was well known and very good back in the
extol
day,
the
but
virtues
things have,
of when Smile Software
yeah.
produced it. And it's just not the same app anymore. And I apologize to the current developers, but it's it, it's not needed. It's not needed.
But yes,
Um,
Uh,
but
but at least it's not a security nightmare like Adobe's
it's not,
Adobe
no,
Reader.
that's true. It's not a security nightmare like Adobe Reader. But anyway, if you don't pre-install something else and make it the default and you
Mm.
double click a PDF, it's going to open in preview and you're like, oh, hey, this is
Yeah,
great.
you think, oh,
PDF's
excellent.
open on the
That's
Mac.
your discoverability.
That's your discoverability, right? But you have to know that you can double click on a
Yeah,
file, which is,
yeah.
is and should be the natural action that you take on any given file, like a PDF. Double click it, see what happens. Just see what
See what
happens.
happens.
What's the
Before
worst
you
that can
install any
happen?
software, see what happens. Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? It'll pop up and say, I don't know how to open this file. That's the worst that can
Yeah.
happen. The best that can happen is it opens up in Pages or Numbers or Keynote or preview or something, and you get to interact and work with that document. Now, the name preview doesn't exactly scream PDF viewer.
No, no.
And more importantly, and I think this is super important, the tools to mark up PDFs are a little hidden. They're
Yes, they
there,
are hidden. Yeah,
but
yeah,
you have to expose them. You have to click that little, what is it, a pen or a marker in a circle? You
yeah,
have to know to click that, and then the super important PDF markup toolbar shows up.
yeah. I'm just
So
looking it up now actually to see what
more
is.
often than not, new Macs often end up with Adobe Reader or PDF Gear, which is pretty good. PDF Gear is pretty good and it's free, but they end up with one of those. They're great tools, but they're really needed less and less these days. Preview is super fast. It can handle gigantic PDFs
Mm,
much better than Adobe's tool can. And in my
yes,
experience, no matter what the document size is, loaded with tons of images and whatever, Preview can open it in seconds and allow you to quickly
yes,
navigate or search that PDF.
yeah,
So some of the things, and I'm gonna run down this list. I did this before, but it's important to remind folks that some of the things that you can do with Preview on the Mac, native, right out of the box, bundled with every edition of Mac OS, is yes, you can view PDFs and images. Okay, fantastic. You can find text in PDFs. You can
mm,
interact with text in photos. You can bookmark PDF pages. You can view information
yeah,
about PDFs and the images within them. You can import, here's an
yeah.
underutilized task of Preview. You can import images from a camera. People
Yes,
forget
indeed.
about that.
Yes.
Image capture is another great hidden app, by the way.
Oh,
But
yes, I forgot about image
you
capture.
you
That's one
can
thing.
you can do this with Preview. You can import images from a camera. Amazing.
Yes.
You can view animated GIF frames. Yes, it's GIF. Sorry, don't get me started on that. You can edit PDFs. You can fill out and sign PDF forms. If the
Yep.
form
All the
that you
signature features amazing. Yes.
uh, absolutely amazing. I'll get to that in just a second. But
Oh, sorry.
if you bring in a PDF that does not have form fields in it, Preview now recognizes that it's a
Yes, it can
form
make
and
the
it will
yes.
ask if you want to create fields that you can then fill in. Boom. That's something that you used to have to use
Mind
something like
blown.
PDF Pen for, or
Yes.
Adobe Acrobat Pro used to
Yeah.
be required for that. So filling out and signing PDF forms is super fantastic. You can select and copy text within a PDF. You can
Yeah.
do things like highlight or underline or strike out text. Highlighting's pretty cool. I use that fairly frequently.
Yeah.
You can
It's got a good
annotate.
redactor built in as well, actually.
It does have the ability to redact. You may get a warning if you do it that with
Yes.
certain tools that redaction
It'll
can
be
be uh,
permanently gone.
exposed or permanently gone. If you don't make it permanently
Yes.
gone, which is something that Preview can do, if you don't do that, there is a danger that it might be exposed
It's
by
not redacted.
someone later. It's not protected, right?
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but the annotation features include things like adding speech bubbles or squares or circles and
Yes, yes,
arrows
yes.
to PDFs. Um, Here's what I use it for all the time: combining PDFs. If you open up a
Mm.
PDF and you open
Yes,
up
and
the thumbnail
reordering them as
view
well.
on the side, you can rearrange the pages within a PDF, or you can
Yeah, yeah.
drag another PDF into the thumbnails and it just inserts that PDF alongside the original, and then you
Into
can
another
save it out
PDF.
as
Yeah, exactly.
a brand
Yeah,
new
yeah.
document.
It's
Um,
powerful stuff.
you, as I said, you can add or delete or move pages. You can crop and rotate PDFs. You can add effects to a
Yeah.
PDF. You can save the images out of it. You can copy or I said copy text, but you can also copy images out of a
Yes.
PDF. A lot of
You can
this
also
depends
recom.
upon how the PDF was created, as long as it wasn't flattened, as
Uh-huh.
long as the PDF is not a bitmap image behind the scenes. There are some restrictions, but if it's a typical PDF, you can do these kind of things, and you can lock PDFs and images as well
Yes, yes.
as export the pages of a PDF into images or thumbnails. And I think I said password protect it. You can do that too.
Yeah, yeah.
And a little hidden feature in Preview is that as you are exporting a PDF, you can turn on a Quartz filter to save it with a
Oh, there
reduced
you go.
file size. I literally took a 45 megabyte PDF that a
Yeah,
client sent me
yeah,
to
yeah,
post to their website. I opened it in Preview. I did an export, turned on the Quartz filter to reduce file size, and it reduced it down to a 5 megabyte PDF just
yeah.
by enabling reduced file size. So that is a huge 40 megabyte savings over what they
Mm.
sent me to post to their website. You're welcome, web hosting company, because now people aren't downloading this ginormous PDF. And then, of course, you can print PDFs and images. And again, that's another hidden feature of macOS. Anything you can print, you can turn into a PDF. This ability has
Yes,
been part of macOS and OS 10 since 2001, and
it's a
it's
killer
something that
feature.
people don't realize. It's a killer feature. And how do you do it in Windows? You install a third-party print driver.
You pray usually.
How do you do it on the Mac? You say save as PDF. Super,
Yeah,
super
it's
simple.
built in
So
at the operating system level. So any even the terminal, you can output a PDF from data that's in the terminal. So if you want
it's
to produce
it's
a report, it's incredibly versatile.
native to Mac OS. Native to,
Yeah,
I should say, OS 10. Native to OS 10 since the beginning, and now native to Mac OS. Now, you mentioned the signature feature. This is something that I often bring up on when I do like little hidden gems of Mac OS. I'll often mention this
yeah,
feature of Preview because you can sign your name to a piece of paper. Make sure you're signing
yeah.
in
Hold
black
it up to the
ink on
camera.
a white piece of paper. You want high contrast, but you hold
You
it up
do.
to the camera in Preview, and it will recognize your signature. Obviously, it's capturing the image inverted, so it will invert it properly.
Yeah, it'll
It'll
switch it
capture
around.
it,
Yeah.
and it will save it into the signatures menu so that you can insert that into a PDF each and every time you need to add a signature. And the beauty is once you've added that signature, you can resize it. So if the
Yes.
particular PDF that you're adding the signature to requires it to be slightly smaller or slightly bigger, you can just
Yeah.
drag the corner handle and make it bigger or smaller depending on what your needs are for that particular PDF. So that is also super, super cool. In fact, I have my primary signature plus my initials saved as signatures within Preview because very often you're filling out a
Yeah.
form and you got to put your signature and initial here, initial here, initial here. So I've added both and I can drop them into any PDF that I need to fill out and save.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems
Now,
like magic when you show this to someone, because you're literally just like you say, holding up a piece of paper to a camera, and it will generate your signature from that your scroll that you put across
yep,
it, and it does such a wonderful job, and it looks really good.
it looks
So
good. It looks good. No
yeah,
more saving your signature as a TIFF file or,
all the
transparent
shenanigans
PNG
you're
or
used to doing on other systems are a thing of the past.
which, by the way, you could do. You could take a
You could
saved
do that,
signature
yes.
and
You could,
drag it
yeah,
into
you could do
Preview.
it
You
that
can
way
do
on the
that.
Mac as well, yeah.
You can do that.
But
But
that's the hard way.
this is a fantastic feature of Preview and macOS that I think gets overlooked a lot. Now,
Mm, yes.
what can't you do with Preview? I think this is kind of important to mention. Unlike PDF
Yeah,
Gear,
yeah.
unlike PDF Pen Pro, unlike Adobe Acrobat Pro, I think you need Pro to do this with Acrobat. You can't easily export a PDF to another format like Microsoft
Yeah, yeah.
Word or
Recompose it.
PowerPoint
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Excel. That is something that PDF Pen always managed quite handily, and it's something that Preview cannot do. Now,
Mm,
why is that important? Because while you can select and copy and paste text from a PDF with Preview, very often the paragraph breaks get messed up. It'll treat every line as a single line, and you'll end up with a line break in between each one. When you use the export feature from, say, PDF Pen Pro, it recognizes that that's a paragraph and it doesn't insert all those line breaks in it. So if you need to be able to more easily take the textual content from a PDF and bring it into some other some other thing, like maybe you need to bring it to a website or something like that, then being able to export to a Word or a plain text document is super important without needing to mess around with that. And there are tools to take care of that too, by the way. There's a neat tool for the Mac. I'm just going to mention very, very, very briefly called Clean Text. If you need to clean up text, Clean Text is a nice, inexpensive way to do that. But if your PDF viewer allows you to export to a Word document, that's a nice, quick, easy, and simple way to do it. Um,
Yeah.
Now, along those lines, there's really no OCR as such with Preview. Preview does allow you to select and copy and paste text, which does mean that there's some OCR going on behind the scenes,
Mm, yeah.
but
But not
it
en masse across all the pages. Yeah. Yeah.
not across
Yeah.
all the pages and not with the ability to say, okay, OCR all this text and export it
Yeah. Yeah.
to something that I can use. So it's not quite as full featured in that regard yet. Um,
Yet. Well, this is where Apple Intelligence might come in because there's new image handling stuff for Apple Intelligence where you might be able to drop. I'm not sure if you can do it now, but you can drop a PDF, uh, no, a scan, for instance, of text, um, and just pass it to Apple Intelligence and say, "Give me all the text out of this as a text file and throw it over here." That
that might work.
that that's starting to come. I've used that in not particularly on Apple Intelligence, but I've used that on another tool in a similar way, just to
Yeah.
say, here's some data. Can you extract this from it and save it in this format and put it over here? Um, that's possibly not there yet, but I'm sure it's very, very close on the way
If that
to
happens
be
behind
built
the
into the
scenes,
Mac. Yeah,
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 if you can do that behind the scenes without needing to invoke some other service, I think that would be great. Um, Here's something the preview can't do yet. I don't know why you can't do this yet. I don't. Maybe Apple considers it some sort of privacy issue or something. But preview lacks the ability to edit the text of a PDF. Uh, PDF Pen had a feature called
technically it's tricky that. Yeah.
PDF Pen had a feature called Correct Text, and you could highlight
Yes,
text and click
yes.
Correct Text. And PDF Gear also allows you to edit or correct text in a PDF, as long as the PDF hasn't been flattened and as long as the PDF isn't a bitmap behind the scenes. You can do that.
Mm,
But that's something the preview just doesn't have. So it's not
that's right.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
not
no, no.
perfect, but I've been watching preview's capabilities expand considerably with the last few
Yes.
releases of macOS, oh, especially since macOS 12, I would say. It started to
Mm,
really expand what's happening behind the scenes with preview and the features that they've been adding to it. Now, if only more people would give it a try.
that's right. It's difficult because it's a little bit of a do everything app. There's
Yeah,
so much in it that it will take you a week to discover all the things that Preview can do.
it
So
it's
it is
amazing.
tricky,
Yeah.
difficult how to market it because what icon do you use for an app that can do almost everything, and what do you call it? I mean, pre, Preview. Like it's just a traditional name, like a simple image viewer, but it's
Right.
far more than a simple image viewer. And there's one more thing that it can do that, believe it or not, even given that huge list of things that Preview can do, there's one more thing that I found very useful in it, which is um, hidden inside Preview as well, in a little bit in the same way as the markup tools. And that's some visual tools in there. So what I used to do, I don't do it so much now, but what I did do was specifically use Preview to preview my photo shoots. So if I
Mm.
would go out and do a photo shoot, I'd have like 200 images or something. You can lay up the images from the photo shoot side by side. And one of the hidden features in Preview is you can expose some extra image tools, one of which is a circular magnifying glass, which is very, very impressive. So
Like
that
a loop.
allows you, like a loop, indeed,
Hmm.
it's called a loop when you hover over it. Actually, yes, it's a photo loop. So it allows you to cycle through the images you've taken on the day. But instead of constantly zooming in and out and zooming in and out to see what's sharp and which photos aren't, and which ones you want to discard and which ones you want to keep, having the loop function on there, you just click to expose the menu and click on the loop button. You can pixel peep on your photos without zooming, and it
Yeah.
allows you to figure out exactly which images to keep and which ones to throw away. And it's just indispensable for going through all the photos that you've taken on a photo shoot to grade them and to figure out which ones you want to keep. So that photo loop function is really, really handy.
And it's right there, built into preview, without needing, as
Yep.
excellent as Photomator is, right? From the folks who make Pixelmator.
Exactly. That's a bit overkill for this
As
type
excellent
thing.
as this is, if your primary goal is to, as you did, go through hundreds of photos that you took during
Flicking
a photo
through
shoot,
photos,
and just
it's very,
just
very
pick those
fast
best
for that.
pictures out, this is
That's
a fantastic way to do it. And again, it's built right into your Mac.
Yep.
So at this point, I guess we ask Darren if anyone listening has a favorite overlooked app that ships with every Mac. Drop me a line or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode to share some of your favorites. Now, I want to wrap things up with a couple listener questions and feedback on last episode, as well as our essential app. So let's start with some feedback from Lisa. She wrote, "I love the show. She just added magnification to the dock." Very good, Lisa. So here is something she wrote I think is new in Sequoia. You can have a pointer fill an outline color as well as intensity.
Yes.
This
can
is
indeed, yes.
huge for the old eyes that we have. So she has yellow on the outside and red in the middle, as she's shown in a picture that she sent. She says it's intense, but
Yes.
it also helps her find the cursor. And this is
You'll
something
never lose your
that
cursor.
I'm not sure was new in Sequoia, because I think it was there in Sonoma as well. But it's an accessibility thing. And you're going to find it under accessibility, and then you're going to find it under display, I believe. And yes, it's under accessibility and then display. And if you scroll down to the pointer options, you will find pointer outline color and pointer fill color. And while you're in there, you can also adjust the pointer size. So these are some fantastic ways to, as Lisa said, you got some old or tired eyes. In my case, they're very often tired eyes. So doing something like this to not only increase the size of the pointer, which admittedly on the Mac is quite small, but also to add a little color to it. Even if you just want to add a little color to add some spice to your Mac using life, that's a great way to do it. So that's a fantastic tip, Lisa. And
Yes.
she also was quick to point out that she keeps her dock on the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Lisa. Very nice.
Wow, there's always got to be one or two, isn't there? Oh dear.
Another tweak. Here's another tweak. Scott wrote in to mention a couple tweaks that he makes to the Mac settings. Under settings and then analytics and improvements.
Ooh.
Okay, so
That's
this is interesting.
Analytics.
Settings, analytics, and improvements. So this, I think that might be under, where is that under now? Apple has moved it around a little bit. Let me see here. Analytics. Maybe it's under diagnostics and usage. Oh yeah, okay. So it's under, it's under privacy and security. That's where it is. So it's under privacy and security, and then analytics and improvements. So here's what Scott does. He goes in there, settings, privacy and security, analytics and improvements. And while he's in there, he makes sure that everything except Share Mac Analytics and Share with App Developers is off. He just turns off everything. He does keep on share with app developers. That way, when an app crashes, the
Mm.
error report will go to the app developer, and he keeps Mac Analytics on. But improve Siri and dictation, he turns off. Improve assistive voice features, he turns off. And share iCloud Analytics, he turns off. And, these, for a company that's focused on privacy, look at what it says Apple is gathering under Share iCloud Analytics. Help Apple improve its products and services, including Siri and other intelligent features, by allowing analytics of usage and data from your iCloud account.
Mm. Yes,
I don't
yes,
like
it
that.
is.
That's off. That's off on my Mac too. So
It's
I
off
think
on my Mac, and I don't think I turned it off. So is it off by default?
I don't know if it's off by default, but I think this is a great tip by Scott to reinforce the
Yes.
idea that we need to pay attention to what Apple is asking for. Now, he also, under privacy and security, goes into Apple advertising, and he
Oh, yes.
turns off
I tur
personalized ads.
I do that
Um,
as well. Yes.
I think that's a good tweak to make. And now there's a new tweak that Scott mentioned, and with the latest Sequoia, I think this is super important. When you read about what Apple wants to do, I think this is an important one to turn off too. Under privacy and security, Apple Intelligence Report. So, under Apple Intelligence
Oh,
Report,
that's
there's
new.
a
I've not
default
looked at
setting.
this.
There's a default setting that says report duration. And I believe by default it's set to 15 minutes. But look what they're collecting. This report may include
May
personal
include
data
personal data.
such as messages and text you enter into intelligent writing tools.
Mm.
I don't like that. I don't want my messages and text that I enter to be sent to Apple. So I change report duration to off, and so does Scott. I think that's a great tip. Thank you, Scott. I like that a lot.
Mm.
Um, Apple is very clear that that report might include your personal data. I don't care how they
I
encrypt it. There's no reason to get my personal data unless someone's looking at it or unless a computer's looking at it and unless they're analyzing it. I don't need or want that to happen. So, there's really no way I want to share that data with Apple, so I've been making sure that that is off as well. So, thank you, Scott. Those are great tips. I have a bonus tweak. I have a bonus tweak that I forgot to mention. Since we were talking about Lisa's and Scott's tweaks, I thought, well, why not add mine in here too? And if folks don't like the menu bar changing from light to dark text simply because of the wallpaper that you've selected,
All
and I
right.
am one of
Yes.
those people, I do not, it's not that the bar is dark, it's that the text changes color. It changes from a dark text to a light text, and I want my text to be legible, if you will. So I find it difficult to read when the menu bar icons change to white and when the menus themselves change to white.
Uh,
Even if I have a darkish background, I still find that hard to read. So I like the dark text to my menus, just like we always had up until a few recent releases of macOS. Well, there is a workaround to that in your Mac settings under accessibility and then display. Again, we're in accessibility here. Under display, look for the option called reduce transparency. With reduce
yes.
transparency on, your Mac's menu bar will revert to that good old solid background with dark or white text, regardless of which wallpaper you selected. The reason I say dark or white is because you're in dark mode. It's going to be, white text on a dark background. If you're in light mode, it's going to be the dark text on a light background. Um, but by reducing transparency, you get rid of that automatic switching of the dark and light text on the menu bar simply based on the wallpaper you selected. Now, the
Mm.
downfall is that the dock also reverts to a solid background. I
Yeah.
like the translucent background on the dock. I do not like the translucent background on the menu bar. Unfortunately, the setting to reduce transparency is all or nothing. There's no way to tweak only the menu bar. But if that is something that you find annoying, you might want to make that switch yourself. And if you don't like it after you switch it, it's just a toggle. Just go into accessibility display and either turn reduce transparency on or turn reduce transparency off. That's it. So simple little tweak there, and I do usually make that tweak on all of my Macs. Now, I do have a listener question and a follow-up question from the same listener. So this is from Cindy. Cindy wrote, having just replaced an old, no, I wrote this. This is what I wrote. She just replaced an old 2015 MacBook Pro with a new MacBook Air. I know, Cindy, this is a beautiful new Mac that she just got. Her old MacBook Pro had a broken power button. It had other issues going on with it. It was time to replace that poor little Mac and put it out to pasture. So she got a MacBook Air. Absolutely beautiful computer. She wrote, I am very used to my Mac staying on. Okay, I think there's a helicopter floating over my house right now. Can you hear that? Can you hear the helicopter? Yeah, I think that. No, actually, they're going to the hospital, I think. But let me let that pass, and then I'll keep recording. See, this is the joy of the live stream. You guys get to.
You get to see the outtakes.
We're right in the flight path of the helicopters that go to and from the hospital. So the bad news is that means there was an accident somewhere bad enough for there to be a helicopter needed. But anyway, okay, they've passed, I think. So Cindy wrote, I am very used to my Mac staying on, so I do not have to put my password in all the time. Right now, after having just set up her Mac, if she stops to write something down, within 5 minutes it goes blank and I have to sign in again. Where do I go to set the limit, or maybe, a couple hours or something, is what she wrote. Now, like I said, I know Cindy. I know her old MacBook Pro did not have Touch ID on it. Her new MacBook Air does have Touch ID, and I think what happened is she didn't set up Touch ID when she migrated her content over from her old Mac. So very first, you're going to want to turn on Touch ID. With Touch ID on, you will not need to enter that password each and every time that the Mac goes to sleep. You just need to use your fingerprint. Now, admittedly, you will need to put in that password from time to time. If you don't put it in enough, Apple starts prompting for it, and it's just a security feature to help protect your Mac. If you turn on Touch ID, that's going to save you a ton of time because you won't have to be typing in your complex password. You just touch your finger to it. And by the way, it's secure. Your fingerprint is not being sent off to Microsoft or Google or Apple or anybody. It is being stored within a secure enclave on your computer, and you do not have to worry about your password being sent out anywhere to some third party. So it is a secure feature of your Mac, and it's worth turning on. And that is done under Settings and then Touch ID and Password. Now, you can extend the amount of time that your Mac waits to prompt for a login, but you want to be careful with that.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, no, I think it's okay. I do think it's okay, quite honestly, because you're not, you're sitting there working and your Mac is going to sleep and prompt for a password after a certain amount of time. If you know this time and you happen to be out and about in a potentially insecure location, you're not going to be walking away from your Mac anyway. And if you are going to be walking away from your Mac, well, purposely lock it. Purposely, lock the screen. That's something you can do.
One of the things you can do that's really useful for that, if you want to extend the time but still stay secure, is using hot corners. One of the actions on a hot corner is to lock the Mac. So that's really handy, so that when you walk away from your Mac and it's different to the timeout for when it's going to automatically lock, you can choose the lock time, but it's a lot easier to just fling your mouse or your pointer to one edge of the screen and it will lock it very, very quickly then. So using hot corners, I think, is a good way to get around that.
Yep, and we've given that tip on the show before too, Darren. I think that's great because I use
Oh,
hot
cool.
corners when I walk away from my Mac. I always move my mouse cursor to the bottom left. Moving to the bottom left is my hot corner
Oh,
for sleeping the screen, and
mine's top
that's
right.
well. The problem with the top right is I have other things that interact with the mouse
Things
in the
up there.
top
Yeah, yeah.
right.
You're quite right. You're
So
quite right.
I've picked the bottom left corner, but you can pick any corner you want
All
to,
valid.
and let the
Every
Mac slip.
corner is valid. Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a good tip. Now, as I was saying, you do want to be careful though when you extend the amount of time before your Mac prompts for a password or Touch ID, because especially with that new wonderful MacBook Air, and even if it were an iMac, there is a ton of valuable information stored in that Mac. And since yours is
Yeah.
a portable Mac, if it's stolen
Mm.
and the safeguards are reduced, you might be putting yourself at risk. So that's just something important to mention. Do not turn
Yeah.
off the prompt, which you can do. Do not turn it
Mm.
off, but just increase it to an amount that is beneficial to you, but not beneficial to somebody who might steal it. How about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but since you asked to extend the time before the password is required, you want to go to settings and then lock screen. And then you can change the setting that's called require password after screensaver begins or display is turned off.
Mm.
The default is immediately. That's the default. So, that's part of the issue you're describing. When the screen goes blank, it's going to immediately ask for a password. But maybe you want to change it to 5 minutes, or maybe you want to change it to 15 minutes, or maybe to an hour. But I certainly
Ooh.
wouldn't make it longer than that. I think 15 minutes is probably pretty
I
good.
think 15 is probably the
If
maximum.
you
Well,
are
I'd say anyway. Yeah.
if you are away long enough that your screensaver is going to kick in,
Mm.
it's fine that you need to put in your password again, because that means you've been away long enough that somebody could, in theory, gain access to your Mac, and you might not want them to have access. So I would not put an hour, but I
Mm.
definitely wouldn't go longer than an hour. Now,
Well.
that was the response to how to change the amount of time to wait. There's a follow up question, because it turns
Mm.
out that Cindy had spent some time playing around with the new iPhone mirroring feature of Sequoia.
Oh, okay.
And
Good. Good. Good.
that it turns out messes up her ability to change the lock screen timeout, which I didn't know.
Oh,
I did
really?
not
Okay.
know
I
that.
didn't know that either. Wow.
So she wrote, I completed the Touch ID, but I can't change the require password time as long as I'm connected to my phone, and I can't find out
Oh, if
uh,
you're connected, right?
and I
Okay.
can't find out how to disconnect my phone from my computer. So here's the deal. iPhone mirroring, when you turn on iPhone mirroring, it prompts you. Do you want to be asked every time for your password, or do you want to
Mm.
automatically connect? If you have it set to automatically connect, you can't change the lockout time. It's going to go to immediately. Um, so it's an easy fix. Again, you open up the app iPhone mirroring. This is not done in
Yeah.
settings.
Yeah.
This is done within the app. So
That
with
settings within the app setting rather than the setting. Yeah.
yep, so with the app iPhone mirroring running, go to the menu bar and then click the iPhone mirroring menu, and then go to
Yeah.
settings, and then once you're in settings, change it to ask every time. There are very few settings in iPhone mirroring. Trust me, it's like virtually
Three.
non-existent in terms of settings. One of them, though, is to either remember your password so you can just connect instantly, or to ask for the password every time. So just change it to ask every time. And then once you change it to ask every time, go ahead and quit iPhone mirroring. Now you can go to settings and lock screen and change the require password setting to
Right.
whatever amount of time that you want.
Ah.
That's it.
I didn't know that interfered with the timeout there. It's very interesting.
I did not know that either. And I learned something
You
this
learn
week too.
something every day.
Thanks, Cindy. Okay, so our bonus essential app. I guess we're not going to do a regular essential apps episode this year, because we're just going to keep presenting new essential apps every episode forever. Forever,
Forever.
forever, forever. We're going to keep presenting essential apps. It's a new feature of the
Of
show
course.
now. It's a permanent feature of the show. And I have an essential app for this episode if you would like to hear it, Darren.
I would indeed.
So, the backstory on this is that for years and years and years, I would recommend and I used what was an essential app to me called MailPlane. MailPlane
Oh, yes.
was
Okay.
an amazingly great application that did one thing and did one thing really, really well. And that was to allow me to separate my Google accounts from my web browser. In other words, I don't want to keep my Google accounts open in a tab in my web browser. I want them
Mm,
separate, like a wholly separate email application, but with the Gmail interface. I know I can add it to Apple Mail. I know I can add it to Thunderbird. But for these particular accounts, and there were two of them, I wanted them to be the Gmail interface because from time to time I would get a Google chat or I would get something else. And I just wanted to be able to easily access
mm.
them
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
needing to access them through the web. So MailPlane was it. Um, and, honestly, even though they stopped developing it in 2000 or 2021, they stopped developing it. And there's a reason I'll mention in a moment. Even though they stopped developing it, still pretty much works, even on Sequoia. But it's funny that on the three Macs I had it installed on, it would start to get wonky on some of them, but not all of them. For example, it works great on my desktop Mac, but it stopped working reliably on my MacBook Pro. It stopped working reliably on my iMac. So it's weird. But
Mm.
the truth is,
That's odd.
there's no fix. There's no fix because
Oh,
it's no
no.
longer being developed.
Oh.
So the reason for that is per MailPlane, Google back in 2021 started blocking embedded browsers from its login page. And MailPlane is
Oh, I
essentially an embedded
see.
browser. Now, they say that there was a solution or is a solution for apps that work with the Gmail API, but none of them, none of those solutions were available for a specialized browser, which is what essentially MailPlane was. Now,
Mm.
why I don't know enough about the behind the scenes coding for why MailPlane can't get this to work, but the app I'm about to mention can get it to work. I just don't know what the difference in technology is between them. Or maybe the folks who developed MailPlane just said, you know what, we're tired of dealing with it. We're not gonna do it anymore. But MailPlane was built on top of Gmail's web interface, and some other apps are not, apparently. So I have been searching for now 4 years, 2021, right? 4 years for a
Wow.
suitable replacement. And I just may have found it in an application called Biscuit. Now, Biscuit, unlike MailPlane, Biscuit supports a wide range of apps. So you can connect to services like Gmail, Slack, Notion, Google Drive, Dropbox, Basecamp, Box, YouTube, Bitwarden, 1Password, whatever. The official list of web-based services that Biscuit supports is pretty exhaustive. I mean, it's a really long list. And
Mm.
if the app that you want to use is not found on the list, you just add it with the URL. It's pretty straightforward. Um,
Oh, it's extendable. Excellent.
Now, here's the cool thing. Biscuit supports notifications on a per connection basis. So they call them apps. So if you're connecting with Notion, you're connecting with Slack, you're connecting with Gmail, you can turn on or off notifications for each of those apps or services that you install within Biscuit. So that by itself is pretty cool. You don't have to just say Biscuit notifications are on or Biscuit notifications are off. You can turn them on or off based on the service that you are working with. So that is neat. And then you also have the option to mute all notifications so you can just, focus on what you're doing. The other thing that's cool about it is that you can create groups. So, for example, you might create a group for your work stuff and you might create a group for your personal stuff. Or if you use different tools or project management tools like Notion or what have you, and you're using different tools based on the project that you're working on, you can create a group for a particular project and put all the services related to that project within a group. So the ability to group services together is also super, super cool. Um, the other thing that's neat from a security perspective is that the app sessions are not shared within the browser. So each app or each service
Excellent.
operates privately. Each one operates independently within Biscuit.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're worried about Google and Twitter and Facebook and GitHub and whatever communicating with each other because they're all set up in Biscuit, it doesn't work. They're isolated. So
I like it.
they can perform safely, from one another, which is great. And then also, one last point, Biscuit does not track or analyze your usage of the app. They don't send you anything. It it's all about privacy. And for an app that's free, even better.
Oh, wow.
So there are a couple downfalls, very minor, kind of wonky, but Biscuit prompts to save passwords. So, for example, I'm using it in a very Mailplane like way. The two accounts that I had set up in Mailplane, I have set up in Biscuit. Okay. Well, I added the one account and it prompted to save the password for that account. Great, save the password. Then I added the second account and it kept trying to fill in the username and password from the first account because they're both Gmail.
Okay.
So I overrode that and I signed in with the other account credentials, and cool, I'm signed in. But then it says, "Oh, do you want to save this username and password?" And it's the exact same username and password as the first account, and you can't change it. So it's a little wonky in that regard. But when I click cancel and say don't save it, Biscuit doesn't seem to mind so far, and I've not had to re-sign into any of my accounts. So from that regard, it works great. Now, I will admit I'm only using Biscuit as a replacement for Mailplane. I'm not using it for Notion or Dropbox or any other web-based service, but I do love the fact that different types of accounts can be grouped by usage and that it so broadly supports all these different services right out of the box. So, if you are looking for a quick and easy and free way to separate your web apps from your browser, Biscuit might just be the way to go. And you can get your copy of it at eatbiscuit.com.
Of course.
And I will put a link for that in the show notes.
Excellent.
And with that said, I think that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, we do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe there are some apps that you feel are essential to your Mac using life and or are important for everyone to know about that come with every installation of Mac OS, well, you can leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaccguysonly.com, or you can drop me a line, Mike at formaccguysonly.com. And do please be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click the little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. And I would like to thank Brian and Brett both for joining us in the chat room today. Thanks, guys. Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Well, now I'm a member of FMEO. I am available at Darren at for Mac Guys Only.
Exactly. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.